Hello and welcome back to my channel What If Deku 2.0. Join us as we delve into the realms of fanfiction and fantasy, bringing you the best stories and discussions. Today we're kicking off part 3 of our series, What If Deku Became the Villain Emperor? If you enjoy this video, please give it a like and subscribe for more content in the future. The author of this story is DekuVerse from Archive of Our Own. All the relevant links are in the description. Feel free to say hello to the author on their profile. Now let's dive into the fanfic. I've brought up the new recruits. I must say, Deku, your show with all those heroes and your bold claims made things really easy. Hope they're what you're looking for. Guran said with a grin as he entered the bar fooled by two figures. Just bring them in already. Tamura was still in a bad mood. Deku won their last match. 1 win out of 172 losses, but Deku teased him to no end. It's fair payback considering that Tamura always did the same thing. Soon after, the group walked in. A man full of burn scars and a teen in a school uniform with the brightest smile on her entered with the info broker. Deku felt excited. He couldn't wait to know their quirks. Let me introduce them. This one's name and face have been hidden by the media, but she's a suspect in a series of deaths by blood loss. Her name is Toga Himiko. Jiren started motioning to the girl. She had ash blonde hair tied up in 2 messy buns. She had sharp canines that was on full display thanks to her wide smile. You're Green Rabbit, aren't you? I admire you so much. All bloodied up and badass. She blushed at the mere thought of it. The girl moved to Deku while bouncing on her feet. She was humming to herself as she did. Once she reached the young mastermind, she held his cheek with her left hand. I want to make the world an easier place to live. So please let me join the League of Villains. And can I stab you? Toga said with a bright smile on her face that had a sadistic and slightly crazy glint to it. Deku first turned red and covered his face. He's talking to a girl. But as she spoke, he noticed her developed canines. Maybe it's part of her quirk. When she asked if she could stab him, curiosity took over and he could only answer, sure. Deku smiled widely and brightly like the sun itself, eager to see her quirk in action. Just choose a place that won't kill me, please. He added a bit hesitantly, not wanting to be murdered, even if it was by such a pretty girl. Her look was that of immeasurable surprise. Like something that she didn't even consider possible just happened in front of her. Did you just say yes? Toga asked, bewildered look in her pretty face, her eyes wide in shock at what she jumped as heard. Great. You're all a bunch of crazies. The burned man interrupted. Are you really the person in the vids against the pros? Deku proceeded to ignore him. The green-headed mastermind stepped into the burned man's personal space with immeasurable that would make Ingenium impressed and examined him thoroughly, making him back off slightly in reflex with a cautious expression. Oh, such scars. Deku squinted to examine the burn marks. You must have a weakness to fire. There are a few candidates for your quirk, obviously not a cold-blooded mutant type since you don't show any outward appearances. Deku already had his notebook out. His nearly impossible to understand rumbling had started. Emitter or transformation? Emitter is more common, and out of those the most likely candidate is. He closed his notebook. Do you have an ice quirk? Can you generate ice or just control it? The man who had not introduced himself had a surprised look. Not nearly to the same extent as Toga, but still noticeable. Now is it because Deku got his quirk right or because Toga had decided to stab him? Maybe it's how she drank the blood on the blade afterwards? All those questions turned into new ones as she turned into an exact copy of Deku with a high school uniform over his own clothes. You can transform into whoever you drink the blood of? That's so cool. Is that why you like blood? Or why you want to see people covered in blood? Does it have to be their blood? Asking the wrong questions. How long does it last? Would you pass a DNA test? Fingerprints? Do you get their quirks? Can you undo your quirk willingly or do you have to wait until time runs out? No. Does time even run out? Wait, your clothes didn't transform. Deku's rambling stopped, and his blush came back stronger than ever. Does that mean that, for you to properly use your quirk, you have to get Eninin naked? He barely managed to finish his sentence. Both Tamura and the burned man laughed hysterically, both enjoying Deku's flustered expression. Guess you really are the age you look. Name's Dobby. I wonder if a kid like you and the guy who beat all these heroes really are the same person. You got my quirk wrong, by the way. A blue flame lit up in his hand. A fire quirk? But he definitely probably maybe has a weakness to fire. How is this possible? One quick way to find out. The man smirked and the flame grew. Kurogiri. He was quick to react to Deku's call and involve the newcomers and Deku in his fog. After a few moments he dispersed it. He found Dabi with a knife through his hand and a katana pointed at his throat. Toga was back to normal. She was still smiling. That's impressive. You really are that hot warrior. Dabi, don't burn him. Burns don't make him bleed. They're not cute at all. Toga whined with a pout that helped decorate her features into a new level of cuteness. You use flames like that in a bar full of alcohol and we're the crazy ones? Deku was angry. It was evident in his tone. Huh. You really do move just like the vids. Sorry about that. Needed to be sure. Also, I wouldn't hit the bar. I have good control over my fire. Dabi said with a grin as he looked Deku apologetically. He raised his hands in a surrendered way. What about her? Could you have avoided hitting her when she was right beside me? Deku said with a scowl, motioning to Toga with his head, and she waved at him, making him blush much to Dabi's amusement. It seems the mist guy and crusty lips are also amused. Nope, but see this? He raises his stabbed hand. We had a few minor disagreements before coming here. She's as fast as you. She wouldn't be caught in that, Dabi assured. Deku sighed and lowered his blade. You could have waited a bit. I was planning on testing you guys. In a safer, less flammable place. I'm Deku Shigaraki, the villain emperor, Karma. Your new boss. He extends his hand and gave a smile. Dabi shakes it. That annoyed-looking person over there who hasn't moved a finger despite seeing his best friend and little brother threatened by blue flames is the League's second-in-command and leader of the Vanguard Action Squad, Tamura Shigaraki. You're fine, aren't you? I was more worried about having to dispose of the corpses of our new acquaintances. Tamura drawled as he gave Dabi a look that said bullet dodged moron, that Dabi picked on and kept a mental note on. Finally he spoke. He's been awfully quiet ever since I effortlessly kicked his ass. Deku made sure to emphasize the last part towards Tamura, who huffed. Which reminds me. Deku's expression grew serious as he held a controller. Before I officially welcome you into the League, do any of you play video games? Izuku asked, his face melting into a smile. Toga grinned and nodded vigorously. With that, all of them started playing together. All right. These are the last two, Jiren said with smiles as he entered the bar. Jiren walked in with a blonde with a scar on his eye and a man in a stray jacket. Take that. I'm back on the throne. Try and make fun of me now. Tamura yelled in triumph. He hasn't smiled this much in a while. And it hurt his lips, but it felt good to win. Next time I want to be on Deku's team. Toga pouted. Shit. Damn it, Dabi. You threw me off. We're supposed to be a team. Deku complained. Don't pin this on me. You're the one who stole the power-up. Dabi argued. Everyone ignored Guiran. They were too caught up in the team tournament. Kurogiri stopped their fun. Tamura Shigaraki. Young master. Guiran has brought up the last two. You should greet the newest members. Kurogiri reminded sternly. Deku didn't seem pleased by their arrival. Tamura also went from triumphant to cold neutral. These two would be strong allies, but neither of them thought they were the type of people they want in the League. The only reason Deku brought them is because they needed disposable pawns in their board. Kurogiri. Be ready just in case. Deku instructed sternly, and the bartender nodded his head as he narrowed his yellow misty eyes at the two arrivals. The duo headed to greet them. Tamura took his gloves off and Deku grabbed his katana. Hello and welcome to the League of Villains. You must be Muscular and Moonfish. I'm Deku and this is Shigaraki Tamura. Please feel free to roam around and relax. Deku greeted politely with a smile on his face. You're Deku Shigaraki? The Green Rabbit? The man who single-handedly crushed Death Arms, Airjet, Kamui Woods and many others? The one with enough balls to declare himself the future king of the underworld. The blonde had a skeptical look on his face. He couldn't believe that the little punk in front of him was anything like what he was boasting to be. He looked too small and nice to be a villain, but in second glance he had that hidden aura of a dangerous murderer that you see in the worst of villains. Yes, that's me. He gave his warmest smile. The first fake smile he gave since he met Sensei. He wasn't a fan of these two villains, they weren't the type he sympathized with. They were nothing but psychotic murderers. The blonde responded by muscling up his arm and hammer it into Deku's head. He was fast and he was strong. There was blood on the ground. A lot of blood on the ground. Yo, maybe you can gimme a fight. Come on. Show me some blood. The blonde villain yelled out manically as he grinned sadistically. Not fair. I want their flesh dash. Moonfish began his rant, about to activate his quirk, but was stopped. Tamura moved before he finished his sentence. He forced his hand over Moonfish's mouth, withholding a single finger. You know my quirk? It allows me to turn things I touch with 5 fingers to dust. There will be no flesh left if I feel a single tooth. The entire league started to move but Tamura stopped them. Stay where you are. Tamura commanded with all the authority of a leader. What do you mean? Didn't that fucktard smash Lord Deku to a bloody pulp on the floor? How are you so calm? Spinner was ready for a fight. He was a Deku fanboy and his idol was seemingly just killed. He looked ready for war. Idiot. That blood isn't his. Tamura scoffed as he motioned to the two confusing the league. Haha. You're faster than me? You managed to cut me as you dodged? You're amazing, Deku. Let's fight to the death. Come on. Muscular turned to speak to Deku who was standing behind the big man. From the sudden start of the fight and the difference in their physiques, nobody saw him pointing his katana from behind Muscular. With a cold expression and empty dark full and lifeless eyes that made the league shiver in fright. Even Tamura and Kurogiri were disturbed whenever Izuku showed his darker side. Imasuji Goto, you were hired by me to do a job. Please don't start fights until the job is done. Deku said in an ice-cold tone, the threat very obviously hanging in the air. Alright. But after that, right? After that you'll fight me? Right? Right. Muscular asked in a mad tone, unhinged grin on his face. Sure. If you do what you're told, I'll fight you. Deku said as he sheathed his katana and put it down. As Deku agreed to his request, Muscular calmed down. His muscles disappeared and he settled in the bar. He made Compress slightly uncomfortable but eventually the fun came back to this place. Moonfish had a very interesting reaction. He is now completely obedient to Tamura out of pure dread. He keeps muttering about how his quirk is terrifying. How can he leave no flesh to be cut? He sometimes mutters to himself. Is that how others see Deku when he rambles? Spinner was going crazy after seeing Deku's skill. That was amazing. Deku-san, you really are amazing. I mean, you were fast in the video of you against Ingenium that time, but seeing in person is something else. How did you dodge something that fast? Spinner asked with stars in his eyes, clutching his own green rabbit hoodie while looking at Deku excitedly. Deku blushed. He wasn't used to being praised like this. Or to be admired this much. He almost had a heart attack when he first met Spinner, who was literally as much of a fanboy to his as he was to All Might. I just thought ahead, you know? Spinner gave a look that says he in fact doesn't know. Sensei always said that there will always be someone stronger or someone faster. You just need to outthink them. From what I've seen so far, I think I know everyone well enough to know their moves, and with that I predict what they will do, then let my sharp battle instincts do the rest for me. For example, Mr. Compress relies on his misdirection. He'll move in a flashy way to create an opportunity to use his quirk. Dabi will attack with a short burst of widespread fire if I get too close. Toga is standing behind that couch waiting for you to go away so she can stab me again, even though all she needs to do is ask. Deku yelled that last part at the couch and sure enough Toga came out from behind it. He extended his arm. This time instead of a stab she simply cut him. Almost like she's taking care not to hurt him. Well, what I was trying to say was that you just need to move before they do. Make up their difference in speed and strength by moving before they do and figuring out their weak points. I read enough about those two to know they'd start a fight as soon as they arrived, so I moved accordingly. Deku lectured with a kind smile, trying to explain as best as he could. Spinner was focused. He was taking mental notes of everything Deku said. As expected of the great karma. Deku-san, you're on another level. Spinner said with a bow. Please drop the honorific. You're older than me. Deku is more than fine. Deku assured him with wave. It was then that Kurogiri came to them with a serious expression, or at least what looked like one. It was hard to read the misty villain's expression correctly. My young master has asked for your presence immediately. Kurogiri said as he looked at Deku, who blinked in surprise before looking at Tamura, who looked back, both puzzled and confused about why Sensei called him so suddenly. Any particular reason, Kurogiri? I am not in trouble for some reason, right? Deku asked with a frown. The intelligent Nomu shook his head in denial. No, but master decided that now is the time. Your project is ready, my young master. Kurogiri explained, and Deku looked surprised. What? Deku shouted, gaining everyone's attention. All of them came in running quickly to investigate, and he gave them an apologetic smile. Sorry, it's fine, nothing is wrong. Deku said to calm them down, then looked at Kurogiri seriously. How long would it take? 2 months, give or take. Being quirkless and your research made it much easier to get it down. Kurogiri explained, and Izuku nodded his head. Deku-kun? What is this about? Toga asked, worried. Deku seemed surprised. Deku smiled. Don't worry about it, Toga-san. But I will be gone for the next 2 months. Deku said, and everyone looked surprised. Why's that? Spinner asked in shock. Isn't it obvious? He is going to some mad scientist to get a super cool and super strong quirk. Mustard said, and everyone rolled their eyes at the conspiracy theory Mustard gave. It was obvious from the beginning that the gas villain had a knack for conspiracy theories. Izuku chuckled at that. As a matter of fact, Tamura-kun will help you station in the new hideout until I'm back. Deku explained, and everyone nodded, shocked at that. Tamura started handing notebooks that Deku wrote for when this time comes. These are short versions of Deku's analyses and plans for the next while, so follow it to the letter. Everyone but the two most recent arrivals picked up a notebook. Eyes broadened in surprise across the room. Read them up. We'll discuss the details of the plan later this week. Any questions? A few hands were raised. This ain't a classroom. Just ask the damn questions. Why at the end of the week? Mustard asked. Did he really write this? Compress asked, impressed. You said these were the short versions? Spinner gaped at the detailed plans and the analysis on the gangs they were going to recruit into the league as outers and how to deal with them if things went south. Can I stab Deku just one more time? It's gonna be so long. Toga pleaded with big watery puppy eyes. Tamura smirked, seeing the amazement in their faces. His little brother deserves all praise in this cursed world. He really wrote this. He can analyze any quirk to an insane degree. He probably already knows more about your quirks than yourselves. Tamura was loving their reactions at his answer. And we going to wait until the end of the week because we will be spending it in moving the things from here to our new base. Yes, his little brother is motherfucking that amazing and he won't let anyone think otherwise. One person had a different reaction. His fault for not answering her question. Oh, I don't know about that, but feel free to ask him. She beamed and turned to Deku, who gave her his arm, but once more she gave a shallow cut, only enough to draw blood, then started drinking it for a bit, then stopped when she had her fill. But why are we changing the hideout? Mustard asked in confusion. Because this place will be found eventually when we make ourselves famous, so better have a secret place where the government couldn't track us. You will be going in and out of the base via Kurogiri's portals. The only ones allowed to know the location of the base are me, Tamura-kun, and Kurogiri. Deku explained to the league members. Well now people, the boss started this. He did most of the work and gave us reputation. He got a shit ton of money to start our operations through his heists and even got us contacts and plans to follow. He is not to be disappointed. By the time Deku is back, I expect that we finished all of our plans in this notebooks. Am I clear? So come on, let's put down this messed up society once and for all, Tamura said as he raised his fist, and everyone cheered rilled up. After the crowd dispersed when they gave Deku their goodbyes and Toga gave him a big hug, and he almost fainted, he approached his older brother with an amused expression. For someone who looked so disgusted at having to interrupt his gaming to meet with everyone and take your post as their boss, you gave quite the speech. Did Kurogiri put you up for it? Deku asked, amused. No, Tamura said flatly. Deku put up his most doubtful-looking expression. No way Tamura could give a speech like this. Go ask him if you're so unsure. I initially just wanted to give them the papers, say, hey losers, I'm your new boss, start packing. And be done with it, but the look on their faces as they read your analyses made me want to show you off. Nobody ever appreciated you in your life. I wanted to show you that this people will. They're like us. Tamura explained with scowl at his brother's doubts. Deku was tearing up. He has the best big brother anyone could ask for. No crying. No hugging either. He said that, but he didn't offer as much resistance as he could. After that, Deku turned to Kurogiri and smiled. I'm ready, Kurogiri. Take me to Sensei. The green-haired mastermind said as he prepared for what he was sure will be an unpleasant experience. Deku stepped out of the portal into the familiar laboratory of Dr. Garaki. The young mastermind looked around at the many tanks filled to the second-generation Nomus, animals of many kinds in each one. The tanks. Hunting dogs, bears, birds, tigers and many other types are being made into low tiers, middle tiers and upper tiers, as well as the very lovely high-ends that Deku wanted to see in action soon. The army would be ready in a year, give or take. It was perfect for the mastermind if you ask him. He already had an idea. A plan on how to make the operation go faster, but he needed to take his promised prize first. Hello there my boy, welcome back. I hope you are excited. Project Absorb for Occupy is finally ready. We only need the implantation surgery. All for One spoke as he welcomed his prized disciple with a smile. Now I'll warn you, the quirk implantation and body modifications will not be pleasant, but with your unrivaled tenacity it shouldn't be a problem in the slightest. The old villain said, and Deku smiled brightly. Don't worry, Sensei. I will be fine, and I am very surprised that my idea was actually a success. Izuku said happily as he grabbed his notebook. So, what was the results? Was the fusion perfect? What can the quirk do? Is it truly what we hoped it is? Deku asked, and All for One smiled. Well, to answer those few questions, since it's all we know for now, absorb for occupy, can since it's all for one base take quirks and give them, and since we combined it with a copy of the stockpiling quirk I gave my brother, it gets more power stockpiled by adding quirks to the core of your main quirk. The fusion between the two quirks was perfect in a surprising way. It went perfectly smooth, just as we hoped. A gem greater than one for all. All for one explained, and Deku was taking notes until Doctor came with an excited look. Young lord, shall we begin? The operation chamber is set, Garaki said in excitement. Deku chuckled at the doctor's enthusiasm and nodded his head. Yes, let's get to work, Deku said as he readied himself for 2 months of hell. But first, I need you to give me a list of quirks you would like to get to fill the stockpile so we could copy them. Keep it small. All for one said, and Deku nodded as he gave a list of quirks. The list had 7 quirks of 7 specific quirks that intrigued the young villains. All for one looked through the quirks, and if he had eyebrows he would have raised them at the simple choices. Are you alright with this, sensei? Deku asked, and all for one nodded. Well, of course, but some choices is strange, such as quirk number 3, but it should be done. All for one nodded. Alright, let's get started then. Deku smiled as he followed the doctor to the operation chamber. Liquid dropped around Deku, leaving his skin sticky as he was pulled up from the tank. As soon as his feet touched the floor they gave up and he collapsed on his knees. He was shaking and breathing hard in his oxygen mask. His body felt cold and weak, he was trembling, but this part of the operation was much more pleasant than the body enhancements. A shiver ran up the young mastermind's spine as he remembered the electric shocks he had to endure. God, it was like Bakugo all over again. But without a break. Doctor? How's he handling the quirks? Sensei's voice sounded somewhere nearby. Deku was too tired to look around for where it came from. Minor state of shock and residual pain, unsurprising since he is still fully human and the quirk has a strong impact on his physiology. Even if he can adapt to it thanks to his quirkless nature and didn't require other changes, it was still hard on him. I could administer him sedatives to ease it, but he will properly recover faster without them. Doctor explained with a proud tone, obviously proud of his work. A firm hand landed on the boy's shoulder. It stayed there until the young mastermind's shaking eased and his sensei took away the oxygen mask and pulled him to his feet for long enough to reach a nearby hospital bed with a pile of towels already there. Deku grabbed one to clean his face. The sticky feeling was disgusting, but it felt much better than the electric shocks. How are you feeling? He had to wait for a moment while Deku wiped his face from the sticky chemical liquid. Deku could barely speak, his breath still heavy. Never doing that again. The underworld future king wheezed out. God, he felt so exhausted right now. Gaining quirks that involve physical or physiological changes can be unpleasant, and implanting them artificially like this needs to be done with enough time. You will not need to endure the same while acquiring quirks with your new quirk, the doctor assured. How long was I in there? Deku asked. Just over 2 months as planned. It is a Sunday evening and close to sunset. All for one explained. Will I feel better by the morning? Deku asked as he was flexing his hand. Mostly yes, the doctor said. This time Deku could actually see the doctor. Deku looked away while wiping himself. Don't bother. It won't go away until you get a proper shower. I will take blood samples for a checkup and then you can go, the doctor said, and Deku nodded in acceptance. I just wanted to inform you that we added a copy of Super Regeneration into your quirk mix. It is one of the most valuable in my possession and will serve you greatly. All for one added, and Deku gave a surprised look. Do you think it succeeded? Deku asked. The doctor looked at him for a moment through his big goggles. He put down his still unopened needle for taking blood and picked up a scalpel, which he held in front of the young mastermind's hand. That is up to you to test, the old man said. Izuku took the scalpel and stared at it. His hand started shaking again. You don't need to try it now, but you should be able to endure much more pain than that, Sensei said with a neutral look. Deku gulped. He knew that, and the scalpel would be little compared to some of his training sessions. Cutting himself just went against fundamental human nature. He held open his left hand and brought down the scalpel with the right. He winced as the blade cut skin and drew blood. He cut about a 1 centimeter long cut and stared at it, feeling a little ill. At least he would have stared at it, but after blinking he couldn't find the wound anymore and there was no pain. Wow! Deku gasped in awe. It was barely a second. The green-haired boy exclaimed. Excellent, now you can survive actual training, and with my now full retirement we will also have time for much more of it. All for one said with a big smile. Izuku's hands weren't shaking anymore, but the cold shiver was almost as bad. Concerned for what actual training would mean, Deku decided to focus on something else and looked at the doctor. So, Did you implant the copied quirks or am I supposed to take them myself? Deku asked as he looked between the doctor and sensei. We implanted the quirks you asked for, young lord, along with a couple quirks master thought would be very valuable to you. Doctor explained and Deku nodded his head in understanding. To be fair Deku, you picked relatively simple quirks, you could have asked for more powerful ones and I would have been happy to copy them for you. Yet you stuck to more simple but admittedly useful set of quirks, although I am not sure about a couple of them. All for One spoke and Deku nodded his head in understanding. You gave me extra quirks? That's generous of you, sensei. Deku smiled. So what else did I get? The boy asked eagerly, waiting for the answer. All for One chuckled before answering. Well, as I already told you, we gave you a copy of Super Regeneration. I also thought it would be beneficial to give the quirk, Prism, which allows you to change the color of things you touch, also your hair, skin and eye color in case you wanted to keep your former appearance. The old villain explained and Deku looked puzzled. Former appearance? The young mastermind asked in confusion. Doctor handed Deku a mirror then walked off to do his work and Deku took while giving the retreating doctor a grateful nod. He looked at his reflection and was surprised at what he saw in the mirror. His formerly dark green hair that he inherited from his mother was now snow white in color. His emerald green eyes were now bright red and shining. His skin was paler than he remembered and that was his obvious changes. Even in his exhausted state he could already feel his body to be much stronger and sturdier than before. Deku looked at the mirror and nodded. I'll keep the appearance, it will make me look more intimidating. Also the quirk would be excellent for disguise. Deku decided and All for One nodded. I also gave you the quirk Understanding, which allows you to analyze the quirk of anyone you touch without knowing it in the first place. The analysis is actually a pretty good rival to yours. It also would analyze your own quirks, which would make things easier for you. All for One added and Deku whistled at that. That would indeed make things much easier. Thank you, sensei. Deku smiled. So how much of stockpile did I fill? Deku wondered then realized something. Does that mean I have vestiges in my head now like you, sensei? Deku wondered. You have filled around 10% of Absorb for Occupy and still have room to grow, Deku-sama. And no you don't. When All for One transfers a new quirk into Absorb for Occupy, the vestige of that quirk is absorbed into it and eradicated. If Deku-sama chooses to infuse the quirk into the core of Absorb for Occupy instead of keeping it swimming in the space of the quirk, he will fill the power stockpiling, but if he doesn't fuse then there would be no power increase. What the hell was that? Someone is talking in my head. Deku said frantically, looking at his surprised master in shock, and All for One activated a telepathy quirk that lets him communicate mentally to hear as well. Quirk Understanding is an emitter-type quirk first held by Ken Kanakoshi before it was stolen by Raijin Shigaraki using All for One. Quirk Understanding allows the user to know the exact capabilities of their quirk, what it can do, how it can grow, and what needs to be done in order to grow properly. In its original user. That previous description was the full extent of the knowledge granted. When taken by Raijin Shigaraki and later Deku Shigaraki, who possess multiple quirks, Quirk Understanding can be applied to any and all quirks possessed by that individual. Well, that would make things easy. Deku mused. Quirk Understanding explained to us how Absorb for Occupy works, and how it is different from All for One. All for One spoke. Absorb for Occupy is an emitter-type quirk that is held by Deku Shigaraki after being crafted by Dr. Garaki Kyudai by combining All for One and power stockpiling, creating the quirk known as Absorb for Occupy. Absorb for Occupy is a quirk that takes other people's quirks and as said quirk is willingly fused into the core of Absorb for Occupy, it increases the amount of power stockpiling percentage. When a quirk is fused into the core of Absorb for Occupy, the vestige of that quirk is absorbed into it and eradicated, but the quirk is still transferable, or at least a copy of it. Deku-sama would still keep a copy of the fused quirk factor. It is possible to put and fuse quirks together into one and even put a percentage of power stockpiling into the newly crafted quirk. Wow, I can now craft quirks. This is unheard of. The doctor is gonna flip when we tell him. I can easily make Nomu stronger. Deku grinned in excitement despite his exhaustion. Indeed, it would definitely make things much easier. And make your allies much stronger. All for One mused. Well, guess I'll let Quirk Understanding do the work for me. All for One decided. Explain multitasking to my successor. Multitasking. Deku repeated in surprise. Multitasking is an emitter quirk first held by Ikumi Munaka before it was stolen by Raijin Shigaraki using All for One. Multitasking allows its user to fully concentrate on 2 mental tasks for an hour, 3 mental tasks for 30 minutes, 4 mental tasks for 15 minutes, or 5 mental tasks for 5 minutes. Attempts to use multitasking for longer amounts of time or for additional tasks can be done, at the expense of excruciating migraines. Any changes to multitasking upon being absorbed into absorb for occupy require more time to quantify. Sweet. That means I get to do more planning with less effort. Or do multiple plots at the same time. Thank you, Sensei. Deku said with joy. My pleasure, my boy, Quirk understanding explained Survivor. All for One said. Survivor? Deku repeated. He thought he knew all his teacher's quirks. I told you ones that you could use in combat, but you caught on some on your own, like 2 from the list. All for One said, amused. Survivor is a mutation quirk first held by Tsuyoshi Sanura before it was stolen by Raijin Shigaraki using All for One. Survivor increases the time the individual can survive while lacking air, water, food, sleep, or shelter by 100 times the standard amount. Survivor does not allow its user to operate at peak performance without the usual amount of a resource, nor does it mitigate the pain nor adverse symptoms of deprivation. Any changes to Survivor upon being absorbed into absorb for occupy require more time to quantify. Survivor is not yet fully assimilated within Deku Shigaraki's body. Oh great! This quirk would be very useful for long-term missions in harsh environments. Deku smiled. Explain Blood Bank. All for One commanded. Blood Bank is a mutation quirk first held by Matteo Sanguinetti before it was stolen by Raijin Shigaraki using All for One. Blood Bank lets its user generate more blood than normal, replenishing lost blood nearly instantly. Blood produced by Blood Bank is more efficient at collecting oxygen from the lungs and nutrients from the digestive system, and the user is protected from ailments associated with the cardiovascular system. While the average human adult would die of blood loss after losing 2 liters of blood, Blood Bank would theoretically allow the user to lose up to 16 liters of blood before dying, due to replenishment. To keep up with this increased production, Blood Bank requires its user to consume more calories than a typical human. Any changes to Blood Bank upon being absorbed into absorb for occupy require more time to quantify. Wow, that would definitely be useful in case I was kidnapped and tortured or something, and with super regeneration it would be a treat. Deku mused. Super regeneration is a transformation quirk first held by Logan Wadsworth before it was stolen by Raijin using All for One. Super regeneration allows the user to heal from wounds inflicted upon them incredibly quickly. Lethal damage that is sustained at greater speeds than super regeneration cannot be healed along with injuries that was cauterized. Any changes to super regeneration upon being absorbed into One for All require more time to quantify. Deku smiled. Oh, that's cool. Wait. Why is Survivor not fully assimilated within my body? Quirks granted to an individual by All for One have an adjustment period where the recipient's body must integrate the quirk and adjust their body accordingly. Quirks that lack physical changes such as multitasking and quirk understanding take the least amount of time to assimilate, while those that change the user's biology such as Survivor take longer. The reason they are not fully did not adjust because they were granted just few hours ago. Reliable data will be available within 24 hours. Well, this is good enough for me, Deku decided. You want to analyze the quirks from your list? All for One asked. Nah, I will do that tomorrow. I just wanna sleep, Deku said, laying down. All for One nodded as he stood up. I will leave you to it then. Rest well, young man, your path has just started. And you are already ahead of others. With that, the supervillain used his mud warp quirk to make his leave. Deku sighed as he closed his eyes. He felt tired and just wanted to nap. Tamura Shigaraki was bored. He was really bored these days, and the new hideout didn't feel like home yet for some reason, like there was something missing, something that made the bar feel warm and welcoming, something that, who was he kidding? It was Izuku that's missing. The green-haired boy, ever since he showed in Tamura's life, said life became brighter a million times more. The kid, for all his anxiety, low self-esteem and insecurities, was a good kid that Tamura was more than proud to call his brother, and let's not forget about whenever the green bean enters his villain mode, he gets far more scary, like a mini-sensei of the sorts. Izuku, or Deku as he prefers to be called now, was the core of the League of Villains. Heck, his debut was one of the boldest, coolest, most fucking badass and brutal and terrifying to the heroes Tamura has ever fucking seen. And said debut was nothing compared to how he finished it by making an open invitation to all those like him and Tamura, the rejects of society, those whom were broken and treated like shit for nothing. It made him sick because in the past 2 months he got to know those in the league one by one just by interaction and looking over and executing the boss's plans. He grew to somewhat like and respect them. They even slightly bonded over their experiences. Twice happened to have a split personality, and it caused him to be an outcast among his peers because people thought he was crazy, pathetic. Tamura knew crazy, and this guy was pretty sane all around, if a bit of a goofball. And after losing his job he ended up using too many of his clones for tasks, and then there was this huge Ass fight between all the clones, a battle royal and a free-for-all if you will. He was the only one standing and he thinks that he might be a clone but not certain, so he is afraid of getting destroyed. It was kinda bullshit because if he was a clone, no matter the quirk, it shouldn't last that long, but the boss will deal with that when he comes back. Speaking of Twice and the boss, to say that Twice endeared the boss would be the understatement of a lifetime. The boss made sure to be nice to everyone in the league like they were family, even that asshole Muscular that Tamura kicked out with the threat of murder when he started yelling that he wanted to fight and murder his lil bro. Even though Tamura knew for a fact that his lil bro could kill the psycho while quirkless, it didn't mean he will stand the dipshit. Back on subject, Izuku always treated everyone with kindness and respect, and in some cases like Toga, Magna and Twice with sympathy and compassion. His kind heart made the new recruits to say the least adore and love him to no end, with Twice on top with Toga. The two saw his self-esteem issues and made it their life mission to shower him in praise. Tamura was happy by that. His bro deserved all praise and hugs in the world. Disagree and you die, which seemed in the few weeks he stayed with the team before leaving it did improve his confidence a little. And speaking of the girl, Toga was basically a victim of her own quirk like him, and had shitty parents like him. Which was enough for the fanatic gamer to start seeing her as a little sister of the sorts. Anyways, her quirk made her fascinated by blood, like seeing others with blood on them, and crave it constantly. Her asshole folks forced her to suppress her urges and didn't feed her blood for years, since she was 4 until junior high graduation, which, much to Tamura's and Kurogiri's terror, pissed off the boss on a royal level, and he actually made a self-pointed plot to murder her parents in very creative and brutal ways that Moonfish would puke. Apparently it's not very healthy neither physically or mentally for her to spend long periods of time without ingesting a bowl of soup's worth of blood, so it was to say the least a miracle she was alive. Izuku instantly started ordering from Guiran's special carnages of blood and told Magna to add them to her meals, and she was told by the boss to drink one every 2 to 3 hours. Heck, he even took her, dragged her, to doctor for a checkup, and the results weren't that pretty, but at least she seemed to get better these days, which made Yumura a bit happy. She was a bit loud and obnoxious, and she keeps saying how she missed Deku-kun and his cute and adorable face and keeps trying to prank Tamura. But she was definitely someone good to work with and she never failed a mission yet, plus she wasn't that bad. The boss left her a bottle of his blood for her to enjoy since she expressed how she liked his blood the most until he was back, which Tamura wasn't sure if the green bean knew that counted as flirting, but he doubted it since the boy couldn't flirt to save his life. Dabi was the most reserved in the league and didn't want to tell about his past, but Tamura knew that Deku somehow knew exactly the dude's deal but chose to stay silent. Dabi had an obvious hate and disdain to Endeavor, which Izuku shared with the burned man. They would often just come up with insults on the flame asshole or make roasting memes in their free time, which they were hilarious to say the least. Mustard was a kid with a villainous quirk, so it is easy to see that bullying in school got him where he is now. In fact, he and the boss bonded over that and even started sharing some of their experiences, which made Mustard actually believe his own experiences were mediocre compared to Izuku's in middle school. Spinner was your typical mutant discrimination victim turned to villainy case, but that didn't make it any less important. Everyone in the league faced some type of discrimination in their lifetime with the boss on top. The irony, and Spinner had to endure some nasty shit from people around him saying that he was ugly, pathetic, not human, other shit like that. But the one that he hated the most was that he weak for just being a lizard, so to say that he worshipped the boss for beating pro heroes while quirkless is like saying that Izuku liked All Might as a child. It somehow made sense to Tamura. The lizard man was told that he was weak and was a reject, but he had quirk, so seeing someone so young, so powerless like Izuku ascend to far greater heights than what quirkless people do and beat pro heroes with their strong quirks just like that must have been inspiring to the lizard man, and the fact that Izuku declared that he will accept the rejects with open arms and will stand up to corruption and discrimination. Izuku basically screamed idol to Spinner. When Guran first introduced the guy, he was all fawning over Izuku, who looked like he was going to have a heart attack. Tamura and Chicken Nugget almost died from laughing so hard at Izuku's over-flustered expression while he stammered helplessly as the lizard man fussed over him. It didn't help the case that the dude dressed in identical hoodie, had the mask to his neck since he couldn't put it on, and wore the same goggles as the boss. Toga and Magna found the boss's expression to be the definition of adorable, and instead of helping ended up joining on the shower of praise. Maybe one day he might develop a small healthy bit of ego, but that would take a while. Same with Compress. Him and Izuku hit it off instantly over their shared love for drama and showmanship in villain work. Both of them would spend long time speaking about the most theatrical villains and even heroes who would always give one heck of a show for their heists. Heck, the two actually went on a couple heists together, and to say they made the entertainment of a lifetime while making the pros looks like a bunch of foolish buffoons would be the understatement of the century. The two easily became drinking buddies on tea, and they spoke about adding a third member to their showmanship club, and even though Tamura wanted to groan, he was just happy his brother found people who understood and even supported him because God knows he needs it. His self-esteem was so low he wanted to go and dust that Bakugo prick over and over again for what he did to Izuku for years since they were kids. Seriously, Tamura had a shitty family when he was a kid, and he was just 5 when Sensei adopted him, and he was still traumatized from a couple years of mistreatment, so how the flying fuck can his little brother smile the way he does after all the horrors he had been through? Seriously, when he told Tamura and Kurogiri about his backstory and his childhood, to say Tamura actually almost cried for the first time in years would be the understatement of the century. That prick Bakugo was the definition of evil, and he wanted to be a hero. That day his resolve to destroy society hardened to steel, and the only reason he didn't brutalize that explosive piece of shit is because Izuku reserved him for self-fulfillment revenge. Tamura was actually excited to see what he has in mind. Every plan he gave was a masterpiece without the desire for brutal harm, so what will he do to that Bakugo prick? He couldn't wait until karma struck down. It would be a glorious day to say the least. Tamura Shigaraki. Kurogiri greeted as he came to Tamura's room after knocking on the door. The decay user looked at the mist villain with a raised eyebrow. What is it, Kurogiri? I am playing. Tamura with a huff, but the bartender didn't seem fazed by the hostility, being long since used to it. Well, Tamura Shigaraki, I was informed by Doctor that young master will be here in few minutes, and considering how much you missed him, I thought you might want to greet him yourself. Kurogiri explained to the fanatic gamer, who gave a surprised look. He's back. Hell yeah, I am greeting him, Tamura said with grin as he grabbed his microphone and spoke into the intercom system. Hey you lazy bums, boss will be here in few minutes, so get your sorry asses to the fucking living room. Tamura called out, then ran at the door into the living room. To say that it didn't take even 5 minutes for the League of Villains to get to the living room would be inaccurate. It took them 2 minutes top as they waited eagerly for their boss to show up. Is he coming? Is he coming? For real? Toga asked, excited, her shining as brightly as her smile. Yes, I was informed by the good doctor that young master's operation was a success. He should be now stronger than ever. Kurogiri explained calmly, and Toga grinned widely. I can't wait to cut him and see his blood again. The friendly vampire squealed in delight, eager to see if her new boss became somehow even cooler than before. So you think he would look different? Mustard asked, and Spinner, who shrugged in response, not knowing the answer himself. No idea, man. I mean, he already knows how to put the fear of God into people despite his innocent face, so maybe. But he shouldn't look that different since it's a small operation, Spinner said. If it was small, then why the hell did it take 2 months and a bit? Dabi asked, and Magna shrugged her shoulders. Oh, it is quite exciting. Finally we get the big reveal, Mr. Compress said with a smile. Just then, in the middle of the room, a mass of black ooze started to form in mid-air, surprising everyone. As the mud n equals began to take shape, it took the form of a person until a figure appeared and the ooze dispelled. The League felt his ominous presence and felt a shiver go down their spines as the room was engulfed in the feeling of death and helplessness. They were all terrified by the figure that they were looking at his back, and he turned his head to look at them. Deku smiled as he looked at his friends. Hello everyone, it's been a while, Deku said, and the suffocating feeling dispelled instantly. Oh, look at you. Toga squealed in delight, taking on Deku's appearance as she jumped forward to look him up and down. She first saw the black face mask that resembled the lower half of a helmet. It was thick and would easily cover its user's neck. The front had a thick shield-like part. It also had pipes coming from it, and it went up to over the person's ears. She then examined his clothes, and instead of the green bunny hoodie he used to wear, he now wore a formal black suit that had golden buttons with a red tie as well as black dress boots, but she noted that the soles had some metal to them. All in all, he looked absolutely stunning. You look amazing, Deku-kun. This amazing. You look like those terrifying crime lords from movies. Toga cheered, and the young mastermind blushed and smiled. Thank you, Toga-san. I am willing to make this my new villain outfit. Deku said, embarrassed. You look amazing, my friend. Compress said with a flourish as he examined his new costume. Wow man, you look cool. And what the hell was it with the entry? It felt like death came to our doorstep. The gas villain exclaimed, and Deku chuckled sheepishly. Sorry, didn't mean to scare you guys. The young mastermind apologized. Nonsense, young master, welcome back. It wasn't the same without you, Kurogiri said with a bow. Agreed. We missed you so much, Deku-kun. Toga pouted. So, how was the operation? Dabi asked curiously, and they all stiffened as he gave them a blank, dull, haunted look with his eyes glassy. Fine, Deku said robotically. Everyone decided to not mention whatever that was about again. Tamura looked his brother up and down, then said, Oh, definitely a mini-sensei, under his breath before he slung an arm over the falsely green-haired boy's shoulder. Come on, let's play some video games. Tamura ayed as he guided the boy to the living room of their hideout. So what quirks do you now have? Tamura asked with a grin as they started playing video games. Dabi was in Tamura's team with Spinner while Toga and Mustard joined Deku in the game. Deku grinned at Tamura and replied, "I'll tell you about it later." Then he resumed playing. In a dark room, a black-haired boy was sitting down on the ground while hugging his knees. He had a bright red hat with golden horns on it. The boy was glaring at the TV screen that was the only source of light in the room. The screen displayed the pictures of two dead heroes along with picture of their murderer, a blonde man with dark eyes. The boy grit his teeth in anger as he cried, looking at the man with absolute hate in his eyes. "Why did you two leave me alone?" the boy asked quietly. "Cheers," Tamura said as he held his mug of beer high in the air in celebration. "To the glorious comeback of our great leader. And stronger than ever as well. Cheers." The entirety of the League of Villains, Deku included, cheered in unison, clanking their respective beer mugs together while grinning in joy. "To our amazing leader's comeback," Toga said with a bright smile. Deku smiled at his friends. "So, what did I miss? 2 months is quite a long time after all. What happened while I was gone?" The mastermind asked his group. Dabi was the first to answer the future king's question. The Inhuman Supremacy Party are basically on a mad fucking rampage, murders, rapes, theft, vandalism, kidnaps, you name it. All on those who ain't mutants, led by this psychotic fuck called Beast. I mean, seriously, get more original for fuck's sake. The burned villain explained with a groan. Deku frowned at that. So a bunch of havoc-wreaking psychos? Guess we will have to deal with that along with others. I thought that heroes are the biggest problem, but looks like we will have to dismantle Sensei's rogue subordinates first. The green-haired mastermind decided. If that's your order, then sure thing, boss. What are we gonna do with them? Spinner asked, which was surprising considering he was a mutant too. Well, we can track them down, but they seem more like a chaotic bunch than a villain organization. It would make things harder because hunting them down will be harder and slower than an organized front. Deku sighed as he drank from his mug of beer. Well, Deku-kun, don't worry. We will deal with that when the time comes, but for now let's celebrate. Toga said as she inched closer to Deku, who blushed a deep shade of red in embarrassment. Well, let's continue. Compress said without his usual flamboyant way of speech. That alone made alarm bells ring in the young mastermind's head. The Creature Rejection Clan members are basically a cult that believe that mutants are basically demons and they hunt them down and do ritual sacrifices with them. It's truly and utterly horrible. Something that would the likes of Moonfish puke his guts out. The magician said with a sad look, and Deku nodded grimly. Oh god, those are even worse than the heroes, maybe forget about them for now. And the worst part is that some heroes are secretly part of this hate crime. Compress added in outrage. Oh, never mind, the heroes are still on the list. I see. Deku sighed, rubbing his temple at this new headache. And the MLA and QLF? Deku asked. Both still under the radar, but that doesn't mean we are, or anyone else for the matter, is safe from those snakes. It's more of the calm before the storm type of shit. Tamura spoke up. Deku nodded his head as gulped down the rest of his mug, then refilled it with the alcoholic drink and smelled it, enjoying the scent of the alcohol. Letting it relax him slightly after all this revelations. And, how is in the hero's side? Is there anything I need to know? Deku asked, smiling in a goofy way after his second drink, and Tamura gave a shit-eating grin as Toga, much to Deku's embarrassment, snuggled to his side. We got information that All Might is going to teach in U.A at the beginning of the new school year. Toga said happily as she grabbed a knife and sliced Deku's cheek, much to everyone's shock and horror, but the young mastermind didn't react much as his wound easily and quickly closed as not even a scar was left on the boy's face. Guess that we will put U.A in the top of our list then. Deku said casually as he sipped his mug of beer. On the outside he might have looked calm, but on the inside he was so fucking excited about the news. Now he could hit multiple bids with a single stone. The group of villains looked in astonishment at the display of instant self-healing, and some of them whistled or applauded while the bloodthirsty blonde vampire pouted heavily. Ah, you are no fun now. You don't bleed anymore. Toga whined in despair that her favorite person couldn't look cute anymore. Deku smiled as he rolled his sleeve and offered his arm to Toga, who looked surprised and confused. Have your fill. I have a quirk that makes me immune to blood loss. So you can drink as much as you want without worry of me dying. Happy meal. He said with a bright smile, making the group look at him like he was crazy. Toga stared at him for a second to process the meaning of that before she dug her fangs into her new walking blood bag without a care in the world or any hint of shame. The rest of the league decided to ignore that scene and focus on their conversation with the leader, as Toga had her fill of her favorite type of blood. So, what other quirks do you have now? Tamura asked, intrigued. Multitasking lets me focus on multiple tasks in the same time. Survivor, which lets me survive much longer without air, food, water and other stuff. Super regeneration, which you already saw, and finally quirk understanding, which lets me know the full potential of quirks I take. Deku explained. Dabi let out a whistle. Cool, was all he could think of saying. Indeed, but do you happen to have other quirks? Compress asked, curious. Deku nodded. 7 in fact, but we can talk about them later. For now I want to know about the hero network. Deku smiled. Spinner and Mustard looked at each other. There has been a rumored man murdering heroes recently and leaving writings like fake, or hypocrite, or masked villain, and things of such. Mustard explained, and Deku frowned at that. That must the hero killer stain. I was going to meet with him anyway, so we will see if he is in our side or must be dealt with. Deku said. Don't worry about him, he is my problem. Deku assured. It's insane, this guy just popped up few months ago and started committing murders like that. The heroes he killed so far were assholes, but still, pretty scary. Spinner finished with a disturbed look. Deku just shrugged. I've seen worse, we dealt with fucking Muscular and Moonfish, damn it. That guy only targets bad guys, so he's not that bad. Deku waved off the concerns casually. It felt strange to the League, their leader was confident, far more confident than before. Did getting a quirk give him this much self-esteem? It felt safe, in fact, like he would take on any of their problems head-on and win. Anything else? Deku asked as he finished his mug, and Toga pulled out her fangs with content smile. Deku's wound easily and quickly closed without a trace of the actual bite. It was very cool actually. Well, it seems that the HPSC are making the entrance exams to hero schools more thorough, and they uptight the standards on who gets accepted. Twice said, and Deku got what he was implying. It's cool now the discrimination is on full display. He contradicted himself, but Deku was long used to it and even found it endearing. I see. Deku trailed off, and the group picked on the change in mood as he smiled and laid his chin on his hands as he rested his knees on the table. Let's play a game of question. Deku grinned, and everyone looked at him curiously. The young mastermind tilted his head. How would any of you change society if you take the wheel? The boss asked in curiosity, and the villains looked at each other not knowing what to say. Toga hummed. Not quite sure. I think we can all agree that hero society is the root of the suffering. It's what shaped the way things are. It needs to go. But I think the only way to do that is to destroy the general populace's faith in their dear heroes. You might be onto something there. But what's the best way to go about that? Dabi smirked, amused by her answer, and Deku smiled slightly. Twice tapped the table as he thought up ideas. We could target the Hero Commission? They do control pretty much everything. Twice offered. Not terrible idea, no one would care. Mustard shook his head. I don't think so. People target HPSC officials all the time. It probably wouldn't even make the news. If we really want to get our message across, then we need to make it big. We should target hero schools. I mean, they all employ heroes as staff, and if we show people that they can't even ensure the safety of their heroes in training, that's sure to rile people up. The group looked at each other, intrigued by the idea. If we really want to make a statement, we should start with UA. They're the biggest and most well-known hero school. It's perfect. Spinner grinned. Magna smiled. We may just be onto something here. We could start off with UA and work our way through the other hero schools so they don't just think it's a fluke and UA was too confident. The only problem is, how are we going to get enough information to stage an attack? I mean, it's not easy to gain info on heroes. Compress hummed. Tamura hummed as thoughts ran through his head until he got the answer. The only thing I can think of is having someone inside UA to get us the information we need. They should probably be a hero student. If they're the target, they're less likely to be found out. It can't be someone with a bad quirk though. If they did get a brain and look into the students, then they would be the first to be looked into. Tamura sneered. We're going to have to do some outsourcing, I guess. The group realized where their boss was going with this, and they looked at him, and sure enough, his expression was that of a proud dad whose kids got a grade. Ding 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 ding. We have winners. We need a spy in UA. And as you said, it must be someone that wouldn't be suspected by anyone, so they will need to have a good quirk. A UA spy would be excellent to our plans and give us insights on Nedzu. Deku explained with a smile that would give the devil a run for his money. The group cheered, their leader was the best. I'm happy to hear you wish to join us as a teacher for the new semester, Tashinori, but I can't help but feel that there's more to this change of career than you're letting on. A small, white-furred creature wearing a black waistcoat and tie probed as he poured a cup of tea and handed it to his guest. The skeleton-like hero sighed in defeat at the principle of UA's question while taking the offered drink. As usual, you can read me like an open book, old friend. He took a sip of his tea slowly as to not cause a coughing fit. Nizu waited patiently while Toshinori took a sip before speaking. I suppose it was only a matter of time before Nitai's warning caught up with me. My power is starting to fade at a quicker pace than usual. I can only maintain my all-might form for up to 4 hours now. It's only a matter of time before One for All leaves me for good. Nizu nodded in understanding. And so, you've decided to become a teacher here so you can find a worthy inheritor to your power. Admirable, but I can't help but feel that this should have happened much sooner than now. The shriveled-up symbol of peace begrudgingly agreed as he looked down. I know. I was too caught up in staying as the symbol of peace that I let myself grow worse in the process. My foolishness has cost me greatly. The man turned his head back up with determination in his eyes. But I want to make things right while I still can. I have to find a worthy wielder of One for All before it's too late. As I understand, Nighthigh has found himself what he describes as a worthy candidate for One for All in one of our secondary students. The principal brought up. Perhaps I can have you meet with him out of random coincidence? Your manipulativeness knows no bounds, old friend. The deflated number 1 hero laughed before blood spluttered from his mouth. Ugh, it hurts to laugh. Nizu handed the skeleton-like man a handkerchief so he could wipe the red from his mouth. Thank you. He handed the cloth back, which Nizu politely declined. Toshinori pocketed the blood-soaked tissue before speaking again. There must be a lot of talents in the new generation, so I would like to meet the next batch of first years first. It would be better to keep my options open, the hero said with a determined look. The principal smiled at the determined symbol of peace when a thought popped into his head. Speaking of talent, have you heard about what happened to Midnight a few months ago? Almost a year now. Toshinori looked at his friend in confusion. Can't say that I have. You know how caught up I can get in my work. Understandable. Nizu acknowledged. But this may be something you want to hear. Apparently, Namuri was unable to stop the robbery of an ATM bank by a street gang local to the area. This bit of news shocked the number 1 hero. Midnight was defeated? Oh, is she all right? Calm yourself, Toshi. Yes, Namuri is fine, but she was more concerned with who was leading the group rather than herself. The sentient creature explained. Whoever it was, they predicted that Midnight would be the one to arrive on the scene, and had the crooks wear gas masks to counteract her quirk. They managed to get the drop on her and restrain her, allowing them to grab what they could and make their escape. The deflated All Might shuddered at the news. Thank goodness she's all right. So what you're saying is that we may have a new villain on our hands that can see into the future, much like Night Eye can. The principal shook his tiny head. I fear that may not be the case, Toshi. When Namuri reported the incident, she told us that she managed to have a few quick words with the leader before they fled the scene. And from what the leader said, he doesn't have a quirk at all. Toshinori leapt out of his seat and slammed his hands on the sentient creature's desk. His sunken eyes shaking and his mouth agape in alarm. That can't be true. A quirkless villain, getting the upper hand on a pro-hero like Midnight. It must be some kind of bluff. I believe that this person ID the now infamous Green Rabbit, my friend. Nizu reasoned. Whoever this person is, he has been able to take down many heroes starting from Death Arms ever since. He may also have something to do with the increase in crime across the city. It's all speculation as I said, but I personally wouldn't doubt it. He also seems to be starting a villain organization that is standing up to the government. We are going into a dangerous territory, Toshinori. The old symbol of peace slumped back into his chair, staring into space with a bead of sweat trickling down his brow. A quirkless villain who could decipher the weaknesses of others? I can only imagine the horrific crimes such a character could commit with such knowledge. And that is only one of our concerns. Shoyuta and Emi has been detecting many gangs across the city joining forces with thugs in the streets gaining the upper hand on police and pros. The common thing in all of these incidents is that they use the weaknesses of quirks. It's the Green Rabbit Toshinori, and I am sure of it. Not only him but those who follow him as well. Nedzu added. And the worst is that the boy declared himself as the king of the underworld. He seems to be ambitious, smart, ruthless and very cunning as well as very charismatic. Does that remind you of anyone? The sentient animal asked. Toshinori got the message as his jaw dropped, his eyes shaking in terror as he gave the mammal a terrified look. No, it can't be. I believe we have a quirkless all-for-one riding to power, Toshinori. Having a successor soon is a must, lest we suffer an unspeakable fate. Nedzu said gravely. Toshinori looked down at his hands. This is getting worse very quickly and I don't like it. The HPSC president is going out of her way in Tirani, the big four criminal organizations, and now this? What has Japan turned into? The hero asked himself. Inko stood at the stove, frying up another helping of her son's favorite food in the kitchen. The area looked as disheveled as she did, with dirty dishes piled up in the sink and food stains strewn across the counter. Her lifeless eyes stared down at the slab of breaded pork in the pan. Figuring that was long enough, she lifted the cutlet out of the bubbling oil and onto a plate, with a waiting pile of steaming rice on the side. She picked up the plate and made her way out of the kitchen and into the dining room. Missing posters with her son's face on them were scattered across the table, nearly making her lose her appetite. Deciding that eating around all of them would be too much for her, and moving them would just as painful, she made her way to the front room sofa and turned on the TV. Maybe a small distraction would do her some good. Breaking news. The villain Muscular attacked the mall last night week. The infamous villain had attacked with the intention of mass murder as he is known for his brutal crimes. He was intercepted by the famous waterhose duo, but unfortunately the hero couple died intercepting the villain. A tragedy indeed. Oh dear. Inko gasped softly as she took a bite of her dinner. Her heart went out to the poor child of the couple who was left as an orphan as the reporter went on. She thought about how Izuku always wanted to be a hero. If he became one, he would have been caught up in all that horror. Guess it was a good thing that his quirk never dash. She dropped her head in an instant, cursing her mind for thinking such a horrible thing. The fact that he didn't have a quirk was the reason he wasn't here, eating by her side. Her eyes started to become misty, remembering that her child being quirkless wasn't the only reason why he ran away. It was because of her. She refused to believe in him. It was all her fault. And today the Green Rabbit, after disappearing for 2 months, strikes again by picking a fight with a famous hero trio. The Elemental Trio. Inko was able to wipe most of her tears away in time to see the mysterious boy that had been making a name for himself since last year. She had been keeping up with the strange criminal's actions like the rest of the nation, but never paid much attention as she was more fixated on finding her son and surviving the influx of depression that weighed on her. The three heroes made a name for themselves by being able to counter each other's weaknesses, with Fire Fist having the ability to shoot flames from his palms, Boulder being able to create earthen walls, and the Blast shooting air blasts, but it was for naught as the green-hooded acrobat easily maneuvered around the three of them. She always found the villain to be quite odd. He always knew how to fight back against any of the heroes who went after him and always found a way to beat them, as if he knew how their quirks worked with a single glance. His costume was quite strange as well. The long green ears stitched to his hood almost reminded her of. She shot up from her seat, knocking over the coffee table and her dinner in the process. She ran up to the screen and brought her face up close to the TV, trying to get as much of a close look at the villain on screen. It couldn't be. There was no way. She must be going mad with grief. But that outfit, it looks just like. The frantic mother tore her way across the apartment, making her way to the one place where she'd been avoiding since her baby's disappearance. She nearly ripped the door to Izuku's room off its hinges, not caring a little about the cloud of dust that met he on her entry. Making her way to her son's desk, she opened up his drawers, searching desperately for something that would make the puzzle inside her head fit together. Inside the bottom drawer, she found what she was looking for. A stack of Izuku's old journals, the ones he made as a child until he rewrote them. Digging through the pile of aged papers, she pulled out one of the books and turned to a page, and let the book fall from her trembling fingers. She brought her shaking hands up to her face, covering her mouth as she began to sob large droplets of fear, disturbance, and relief from her wide, quivering eyes. At the top of a crudely drawn sketch was the written title, Hero Costume Design No. 1. The image below, drawn in felt tip, was a dark green figure with 2 long stretched-out strands of dark green sticking out of the sides of his head. Izuku Midoriya. The green-haired mother sobbed. They still hadn't found someone to take up the role of student inside UA's heroics course, and while they had months left before the entrance exam, it was getting frustrating. The League of Villains were all assembled in the hideout's large living room, watching TV, playing video games, or just chatting about something or another. Mustard was entertaining them with his newest conspiracy theory about the second-year hero student Mirio Togata being All Might's secret love child with Night Eye as the godfather, and that's why the boy was interning in the hero's agency. Deku found it endearing and very entertaining. He knew it was complete bullshit and everyone else did so too. Heck, Mustard himself did, but that never stopped him from making things up, and if he enjoyed it, then who the hell was Deku to stop him? The League was after all a place where they could be themselves without restraints as long as they respect each other's privacy and feelings, and most importantly safety. Toga violated that rule with him many times, but thanks to his super regeneration he barely even flinched, and thanks to Blood Bank it didn't matter to his health. Plus it made her happy, so he didn't mind that much. but for some reason everyone keeps giving him strange glances whenever he offered Toga-san his blood. With one of the quirks Izuku had gained, they had a fragile backup plan, but he wanted it to be a last resort as it would require him to be absent most of the time and there was always a risk as Eraserhead is rumored to work at UA. He sighed. They had backup plans for their backup plans, but every single one of them required a 14-year-old with a heroic quirk and an awareness of how bad everything was. Not a typical combination. His hopes of making this easy on himself were starting to fade. "Young Master, Tamura Shigaraki," Kurogiri called from the doorway. The sensors we have in the old base had gone off for some reason. "It appears that there is someone at the bar," the mist villain said. Deku got up from his place on the couch. Toga was snuggling to his side, much to his embarrassment, so he decided to politely pull himself out of the blonde girl's possessive grasp, much to her despair as she whined in protest, but he had to check this out. "Sorry, Toga-san, I know that you feel cold, but as the leader this is my responsibility to greet the visitors." Deku smiled apologetically and Toga pouted. The rest of the league wanted to smash their heads on the wall from their boss's naivety. Seriously, he must be crystal pure if he believed Toga's bullshit excuse for cuddles. "No fair. I wanna hug more. I wanna. Wah. She flailed around like a child while Deku looked on with hesitance, not knowing what to do with the blonde girl's antics. Tamura glanced at Kurogiri. "Is that what I did look like?" The fanatic gamer asked, not liking the sight of a teen acting like a little girl that was denied a chocolate bar. "Oh yes, in fact you were much worse," Kurogiri said in amusement as Deku tried to negotiate with Toga for her to stop whining. To be fair, Deku was intrigued by the guests, whoever they were. No one actually came in there for drinks. It was a front. People only entered if they were looking for something, usually a miracle that his sensei could provide. For a price, that is. Most people have heard of a little black book, but his sensei went a step further and kept large binders full of contracts he made with people. It made for limitless reliable resources because people were too afraid of losing their quirk, possibly life, to even mention all for one anywhere near a cop. Tamura groaned dramatically and made a show of dragging himself from his beanbag where he was playing Dark Souls with Dobby, Spinner and Magna, before turning his gaze down to the leader of the league. "You wanna come or stay here? It's probably nothing worth mentioning." Deku nodded his head. Since he was already standing, he was too bored today to stay sitting, but somehow enjoyed being hugged, so might as well check out what is this about. He actually had a good feeling about this. "Kurogiri, let's get this over with," Deku said with a yawn of boredom. Tamura nodded at Kurogiri and they were all warped into the back room of the bar before making their way out to the front. Good idea. Better to not let anyone know they have a warp gate at their disposal. Never hurts to be cautious. It was a girl his age or close to it. She was pale with brown eyes and shoulder-length brown hair. She was carefully observing the room, clutching tightly to the strap of her backpack as if it would be taken, which in this neighborhood was a valid possibility. Her attention snapped to them the moment they walked through the doors. Deku noticed that she looked tired, scared, hungry and very soaked, probably because of the rain outside. Kurogiri stood behind the bar and took out a handful of glasses. "What would you like?" the bartender, polite as ever, asked gently. She hesitantly glanced down at the glasses. "In general or to drink?" Tamura sat down on one of the stools and motioned for his little brother and boss to take the spot next to him. Kurogiri was already filling their glasses with their preferred drinks. "Let's start off with what you want to drink first, then we can move on to what it is you came here for," the mist villain suggested. She walked up to the bar, taking a free seat closer to Deku, who blushed at seeing a pretty girl sit beside him, and so closely too. She probably just felt a little more comfortable around someone her age, that's all. "May I have some iced tea?" Soon enough the glass was sliding across the bar, coming to a stop in front of her. Tamura was side-eyeing her as she sipped the tea and eventually sighed. "All right, why did you come here and what's your name?" She took a deep breath. "My name is Ochako Uraraka. My parents said that if anything ever happened or if I needed something to come here and it would be taken care of." "Wait, Uraraka." Deku thought in worry. "Names and quirks." Tamura motioned for Kurogiri to be ready. Uraraka Haruto, his quirk was gravitational field nullification. Uraraka Saori, her quirk was telekinesis. She set her glass of tea down as she spoke. "Oh, I know them." Deku interjected, stopping Kurogiri from wasting his time on the books. Both Tamura and Kurogiri looked at him curiously, and so did Ochako. "They built multiple safe houses for the team to use, and they are the ones built our home," Deku said, and the two villains understood quickly. "They were one of the people in the list of my favors. Their daughter is under my protection, so she is my responsibility," Deku explained, and Ochako looked at him surprised. Deku turned to her seriously. "I need to see the proof first. Where is the thing that your parents gave you? Ochako blinked before she started rummaging through her backpack until she found what she was looking for and sighed in relief. Here. Ochako said, handing Deku a black card. It had a red flower drawn at the middle of it with some symbols only Deku knew, and to perfect it there was the villain mastermind's very signature on the lower left corner of it. Tamura nodded. Alright, what did you need, kid? Tamura asked, now relaxed, to the girl. Uraraka straightened up in her seat and turned her attention from the binder to Tamura. Deku noted that she was on the verge of crying. My parents died in a villain attack. I need someone to put a relative into my file, an aunt or something, so I don't have to stay in foster care anymore. Consider it done. Will you need someone to pick you up from where you're staying? Deku smiled kindly at the girl, who much to Tamura's and Kurogiri's amusement blushed slightly. She thought for a moment, her face tired and her soaked clothes making her shiver slightly before she nodded her head in affirmation. Probably, I doubt they'd let me just walk out on my own. Protocols and such. Suddenly, Izuku was struck with a brilliant idea, and he knew coming here was the right thing to do. The answer to all of their plans was sitting right in front of them. But he will have to get the girl's trust first and show her he cared. He didn't want to make her feel forced or anything. The green-haired mastermind looked at the brunette with a smile. Would you prefer if you didn't have to go? You don't seem like you want to go back to wherever you are. Deku said in a gentle, worried tone. Ochako frowned. No, but I can't just not go. It will be suspicious. Ochako said with a frown and looked at the green-haired boy. What? What do you suggest? She asked suspiciously, but she seemed considerate. Well, you can stay with us until everything is settled. But it's up to you, nobody is forcing you. Deku assured her with a gentle smile. Tamura and Kurogiri looked at Deku strangely, but they knew him long enough that if he was gonna do something, he was doing it for a great benefit, and they both knew that letting him do his thing was the best course of action. After all, Sensei gave him the wheel from the start when it comes to making his own villain organization, and the results speak for themselves. They had very powerful and loyal members in their inner circle, and somehow they got a good chunk of the organized crime in the city under their thumb. Ochako on the other hand thought for a bit. She knew it was not a good idea. These were obviously criminals, maybe even villains. She could murdered or something. She wasn't someone to judge, but these guys screamed villains. But for some reason, even though the green-haired boy was obviously the boss and had that aura of danger around him, he only radiated kindness and safety. Ah, fuck it. Why not? Ochako thought with a sigh. Sure thing, why not? This bar isn't that bad anyways. The brunette shrugged her shoulders casually, and Deku smiled. Oh, this? Deku asked, motioning around, then chuckled, confusing the pink-cheeked girl. This is a front, a meeting place if you will, where I do most of my business. The real home is a snap of fingers away. Deku looked at her with a gentle smile. If you are up for it, that is. He added kindly. Ochako was captivated. By that smile, that damn smile, it's like she was getting brainwashed by his affection and kindness. Was this some quirk? Would make sense, but the feeling of danger underneath the surface from him means it's not the case. After a few seconds she nodded. Fuck it, if I die at least the dude was cute. She thought, then blushed furiously at the thought. What was wrong with her? Deku beamed at her as he stood up, followed by the two villains, and Ochako stood up, then looked at the wet stool, then at Deku apologetically. Sorry? Was all she could say. Don't mention it. He chirped, then snapped his fingers. The four of them were indulged in black liquid, swallowed them slowly. She should have been scared, but his reassuring smile made her relax. The League of Villains expected few things when the three came back. A couple scratches from dome fight? Maybe. To be covered in blood? That would have pleased Toga. To be perfectly fine and it was some mundane errand? Most likely. But what no one in the league expected was for the boss to show up with a girl his age that looked like a stray cat, wet, tired, hungry, and obviously scared to death. Dobby, bless his heart, decided to man the fuck up and speak since no one else knew what to say. Another stray boss? He asked with a smirk. The girl deadpanned at Dobby and replied with a huff. Takes one to recognize one. The girl said indignantly. Tamura exploded into laughter, and soon everyone followed his example while Dobby sputtered in surprise at the jab. So the kitten has claws? Deku looked at the league seriously, and they straightened up in anticipation. Everyone, this is Ochako Uraraka. She is under my protection, so my responsibility. Treat her well like one of us. He said with his leader voice, so he meant business. The green-haired boy looked at Twice and smiled. Jin-kun, please step up. I need your help with something. Deku said, his leadership aura dispelled into his usual friendliness. Twice obediently did as instructed as he stood in front of his boss and gave a salute. Yes, boss. How can I help? The black and white spandex villain asked eagerly, excited to help his dear leader. Deku looked at Ochako, then twice motioning to the girl, who was much to everyone's amusement, Deku's embarrassment and Toga's jealousy hanging on his arm for dear life. Twice gave a salute as he grabbed his measure tape and started measuring the brunette, much to her confusion, but confusion turned to astonishment as a perfect clone of her materialized in front of her. Wow! Both brunettes said, and Deku smiled. Kurogiri, take Ochako too to her foster home and make sure she gets there safely. Compress, would you be so kind to prepare a room for our guest? Magna, please make a meal, and Toga-san, please get her some of your clothes to change into. The green-haired leader commanded gently, and everyone gave a yes sir as they went into their tasks. After a change of clothes and a very nice meal, Ochako was sitting on a bean chair facing Deku, who said he had a suggestion to her but first wanted to speak. Everyone else left, but instead of worry she felt fine. So, may I ask about how your parents died? I know it's a sore subject, but they were from my favorite people. Deku asked gently. Ochako looked down in sadness. They were caught in a crossfire between a villain and... The brunette trailed off, then her face became disgusted. An endeavor. The brunette said the name like it was poison on her tongue. Deku scowled at that. I see, and you were told it was an accident, but it wasn't? They were horrifically burned beyond recognition. Deku said with a sigh, like he heard this type of stories every day. Ochako wondered if that was the case. Yes, I hate them. She cried as she hid her face in her hands. I understand your situation and feelings. Deku said gently. Ochako glared at him heatedly. Liar. She snapped. How can you understand me? She said heatedly. Deku didn't lose his composure as he moved closer to her and put his hands on her shoulders. But I do, the pain of having no one understanding your pain, of no one seeing your suffering, the loneliness of having no one to turn to. I will listen to you, so speak to me. The green-haired leader said gently. It was how the dam broke as Ochako started crying and clutched her chest. I feel emptiness in my heart. No one knows how much it hurts to lose those you love. It hurts so much. She sobbed as she hugged Deku like a lifeline. Deku smiled sadly as he patted her head. Oh, you poor girl. You don't have to worry about it, because I am here. Deku soothingly said. After a bit of time, Ochako stopped crying and calmed down and dried her tears with a tissue Deku gave her. Where are you planning on going afterward? Deku asked with a smile at Ochako. She looked over at him blankly, too tired to react. Once I get out, I should have access to my parents' money. I was planning on renting an apartment in Mizurufu. It's close to U.A and I'm planning to apply in the spring. Deku internally grinned like a fool. Looks like God is on his side today. Oh, what were you planning on applying for? The Underworld's future king asked, intrigued. Either the support or management track. Probably management, but I haven't made a solid decision yet. Why? She asked, confused. Deku grinned in joy. Better make her see him like this, she could relax. I think we could help each other out. I would like to offer you a deal if you're up for it, that is? He added helpfully. I'm not agreeing to anything unless I know what I'm getting into. The brunette said, even though he was nice, better be careful. Smart move. How do you feel about going into the heroics track instead? Deku asked with a smile. She tilted her head. If you asked me that a month ago, I would have said yes without hesitation, but I'm not exactly the biggest fan of heroes at the moment. So, why would I go into heroics? What's in it for me? Ochako asked, curious. Well, what's in it for you is enough money. You won't have to worry about anything for the rest of your life, and if you're into that kind of thing, maybe a bit of justice. Deku could feel the moment she decided, even before she did. All right, I'm listening. What do you want me to do? Ochako asked, determined. We need someone to give us information on students in the hero course. What you're doing on certain days. If you're going anywhere. Who your teachers are. Basic information on the quirks of the people in your class. Who might be easily swayed to join us. Simple stuff. Deku assured her, no need to put into dangerous stuff without her consent. But if you are up to it, we can get you a position in the league as a member. We here are people who wish to change society into the better. So people like don't have to be victims. Ochako was convinced, but something worried her, like she didn't want to let him down for some reason. We don't even know if I'll be getting into the heroics track yet. Isn't planning on me getting in a bit too much? The village boss snorted. Your quirk is zero gravity. You're a shoe-in for the hero course. If you're really worried, we have a place you can train. And I can get you a nice quirk boost if needed. She stared down at the tea Mr. Compress kindly offered her for a moment before she let out a sigh. All right, I'm in. Just tell me what you need me to do and I'll do it. And as for the league? If I'm caught, I'll happily join. Deku beamed at her and stood from his chair, holding his hand out for her to take. Welcome to the League of Villains, Uraraka. I think we're going to get along great. Ochako smiled. I hope so, Deku-kun. Ochako beamed. When Ochako was little she loved watching hero fights. Not the fights themselves but the other people watching. Seeing them happy and in awe as heroes did their work was worth everything to her. She wanted to make people feel like that. She just hadn't understood at the time that heroes were just as capable of ruining someone's life. She hadn't quite understood what her parents meant when they made her memorize an address and told her to go there if anything happened and she needed help. She was young and confused, so she wrote it off, letting it fade to the back of her mind. She also hadn't understood when they suddenly came into money around 7 months ago. All she knew was that she had to watch her parents struggle for a long time before one day they came home and it looked as if a weight had been lifted from their shoulders. It was like all of their problems were solved. Of course, they hadn't started throwing money around because that's not the type of people they were. But they no longer had to choose between rent and food, which was great to say the least. Things were good for a while. But if there was one thing she learned, it was that happiness had an expiration date. It never lasted forever in this world. Her parents were taking some well-deserved time off of work to go out for the weekend. The idea had been for them to go to Tokyo and enjoy the area together. They promised to bring her back something special and she waved it off as she gave them a hug and an embrace goodbye. Then the incident happened. The block they were in was decimated completely. They were still holding hands when she had to identify them, which was very strong because of the burns. She ended up in a foster home. They all said she was lucky because she was actually placed somewhere. She didn't feel very lucky. She felt awful. Her entire world had been turned on its head. So much time was spent admiring heroes for their ability to protect and bring joy to people. But there were always two sides to a coin. It wasn't a villain who killed these people. Or not only a villain. Of course, that's what everyone was playing it off as. Because why would they make heroes face the consequences for their actions? Why would a hero visit the families of those who died? Why would a hero apologize for ripping away the people that someone cared about? They were just doing their job after all. It was collateral damage. Collateral damage. As if that wasn't people they were talking about. Ochako woke up at midnight and yawned as she took a look around her new room. Deku-sama said that this now her room. Whether she lived in an apartment or not. It was hers to stay whenever she felt lonely, whenever she was in danger, or if she just wanted to hang out. It was really sweet of him actually, and he even offered to buy her things she desired to decorate. At first she thought he was hitting on her, but when she asked the others they burst into laughter, telling her that Deku-sama couldn't flirt to save his life and that around girls he was a stuttering mess. It made her feel better knowing that someone was truly that kind and protective. It made her feel safe, wanted. Something she hasn't felt since the death of her dear parents to but endeavor. That's Sonava Beach. She looked around absent-mindedly as she thought of what she agreed to. She didn't regret it. She knew that society was to say the least an absolute cluster F. Heroes doing whatever they wanted selfishly, and villains abusing their powers for their own selfish reasons. It made her sick that it was like this and only getting worse. She wasn't dumb, she knew that the country was in fact a literal war zone, not only heroes against villains but villains on villains and heroes on heroes too. It was messed up to say the least. The Meta Liberation Army and the Quirkless Liberation Front are on each other's throats. The group that hated the Quirkless and the group that hated the Quirked, it was obvious that they hated each other's guts thoroughly. Same goes thoroughly for the Creature Rejection Clan and the Inhuman Supremacy Party. They were killing each other brutally. It was a massacre between the two groups that made her stomach turn. Ochako looked at the room for a few seconds. It was bare, just a desk, bed and a TV, but in all honesty it was pretty neat. The walls were pink, so that's a plus in her book. She was wondering if her parents really worked for Deku-sama. He was an interesting character, she guessed. The boy was obviously a villain and a powerful one at that, but also he was very kind and understanding. He said that her parents were good people in his book and that he would protect her like he promised them, that he always keeps his word. It felt nice to know that someone out there had her back and that she wasn't alone anymore. Last night was emotionally exhausting to the brunette. She ended up speaking for a while with her new leader about how she will help them in U.A and all. Leader. Deku seemed like true leader from what she observed. He could be stern and commanding when needed, but he was gentle and kind most of the time, and it was obvious that these guys respected him more than feared him. She could tell that all of them had something keen to admiration for Deku-sama, but she hasn't known him for long enough to see what is it. Maybe it's how he said that he wanted to change society and make a better one? Was that what attracted them? The longing for a better world? The promise for a better life? It was truly something that would bring a lot of people together. Ochako could agree on that. The world needs to change, and she was actually respecting the fact that this young man was leading a villain organization that actually had enough power to command the gangs around. It was impressive to say the least. He was doing what no one else did, stood up to the wrongs of the world and tries to correct it. She was interrupted from her thoughts as there was a knock on her door and she looked at it with curious expression since it was pretty late and everyone should be fast asleep. She decided to ask who is it. Who's there? Ochako asked. She knew no one will hurt her. Deku made that obviously clear that no one here had any ill intentions toward her, and she fully believed the leader's words. She didn't know what it was but it was something that made her believe in him and want to follow him to the end. It's me, Toga. I just want to talk, Ochako-chan. Please? Pretty please? It's important. Toga's voice called out from the door and Ochako tilted her head. Toga was an odd one. She seemed nice but talked a lot about BLD. Not that Ochako minded much. It was as Deku-sama said, a normal thing because of her quirk, but what was weird how she talked about Deku-sama's BLD like she drinks it in the 3 meals or something. It much to her shame creeped her out. Sure thing. Ochako shrugged her shoulders and Toga opened the door quickly, but instead of coming in she motioned for Ochako to come with her. Raising a skeptical eyebrow she followed the girl as they exited the room and walked for a bit into another room that had a big poster with the words, Queen of the Vampires, written on it with a picture of vampires behind the writing. Ochako supposed it made sense since Toga was a bit of a vampire herself since she drank BLD and all. Said vampire opened the door and motioned for Ochako to come in. With a carefree shrug Ochako entered the room and her first thought was, that's a lot of Deku-sama. Ochako stated as she looked at the many Deku plushies and dolls on Toga's bed, shelves and even desk. It was obvious that Toga was basically a simp for her boss, which kinda made sense since he was all cool and strong and cute. Ochako shook her head furiously. What the F is it with her and the greenette? She barely met him today and she was already simping for him? That was bullshit. Sit down. We have lots to talk about. Toga grinned as she sit on the bed, leg crossed, and Ochako sit down on the bed as well in the same position facing the brunette. Ember Orbs looked at Brown as the two girls stared at each other. Brown in curiosity and Ember in interest. So, what did you want to talk about? Ochako asked, curious to what the blonde vampire wanted to talk about. The two of them haven't interacted much today. Said Vampire smiled widely. Just wanted to talk to you. I'm curious if you think Deku-kun is amazing too. Toga said with a big grin displaying her big canines. Ochako blushed then gave Toga a weird look. What does that have to do with anything? Ochako asked in embarrassment. Because he is someone interesting. I want to have a girl talk with the new girl. Is that bad? Toga asked confused and Ochako sighed in exasperation. No. Just strange that you called me in the middle of the night to just say that. We could do that later but since I'm already here then sure. What do you want to discuss? Ochako asked and Toga beamed in happiness that Ochako was tagging along. The huge smile on Toga's face made Ochako very nervous. I feel strange around Deku-kun. I like him so much. I want to become him. But at the same time, it's different from the other times I felt like this. I end up not wanting to cut him but at the same time I want to cut him so badly. And I do out of instinct but he never gets mad at me. He looks so cute when he's all cut up but I don't like it when he's too cut up. Why's that? I also love his BLD, it's the best I ever tasted in my whole life. That never happened before with me. Toga looked very confused. Ochako looked at Toga for a bit then replied simply. That's love. Toga looked confused so Ochako continued. The reason you feel different to him is because you just liked those others? But this particular person is different. You love him so you don't want to hurt him, instead you want to protect him. That's love, caring about someone and their well-being. Wanting to make that person happy and safe, to help him achieve his dreams. Ochako explained. Toga hummed in thought. And you? Do you at least like Deku-kun? Toga asked smiling slyly at the brunette. The brunette blushed furiously and Toga grinned in triumph. Ah, you do. Toga giggled and Ochako groaned in misery. Don't you love him? What's in it for you if I like him? Shouldn't you be mad? Try to tell me to back off or something? That he is yours. Ochako asked. This girl was strange. Toga just giggled again. We can share, you know Deku-kun has a lot of love in his heart. Toga sang and Ochako's face became red with embarrassment. WYWW, would USS suggest something like that? Ochako stammered helplessly as she gave the blonde a bewildered look. Toga shrugged. The only thing more badass than a villain king is a villain king with a HRM of overly deadly and appealing women. Toga said matter-of-factly like it was the most obvious thing in the world. Ochako deadpanned. I don't like him that way. Was all she could try even though it was complete bullshit. Toga smirked. Few days, give it few days and you will be head over heels for him. I'm speaking of experience, you know. Toga said smugly and Ochako wasn't comfortable to that much confidence. Was she really by the time she leaves gonna fall for someone? It felt absurd. Toga grabbed one of the Deku dummies and started playing with it. I think Deku-kun is amazing, Did you know he was quirkless? The vampire asked, looking at the dummy with a smile. Ochako shrugged. Who doesn't? I mean, he literally claimed it on TV many times before. All the heroes he single-handedly crushed alone proves that being quirkless does not make you powerless. Ochako smiled at the thought of all the vids she watched that was very inspiring. Did you know that the reason he is a villain is because people hurt him so badly just because he didn't have a quirk? Day in and day out getting beaten down by other kids and ignored by teachers, tormented by all his peers. Toga's face became that of rage, and Ochako herself felt slight anger that someone hurt such a sweet person. Toga smiled then. Until one day he decided he had enough. Then his sensei found him and took him as his own, and our dear leader started working strong to build the League of Villains from scratch with his own hands. He wanted it to be a home for the likes of him, a home for rejects. For those whom society rejected or actively pushed to the brink. The vampire said, kissing the dummy, and Ochako blushed but smiled as she thought of the green-haired boy who gave her a home and even supported her when no one else did. She blinked. He was there for her when no one was, and he offered her the chance for justice and even to get stronger. The thought made her blush. Maybe she did like him after all. The brunette grabbed one of the Deku plushies and held it. Can I keep this? Ochako asked, and Toga beamed in joy. By all means, yes. Having one in your bed makes you sleep much easier and more comfortably. Toga grinned. The two chatted for a bit more, then Ochako left for her room to continue sleeping. And true to Toga's word, the sleep came much more naturally as she clutched the Deku plushie to her chest. Kurogiri checked over everything in the kitchen twice, then thrice for good measure. All the dishes were done and put away. Breakfast was prepared and ready to go for tomorrow. Floors were clean. Counters and stove as well. He smiled and let himself relax as he put his drink in the fridge. All in a day's work. He made his way through the halls and stopped by Toga's room first. She sometimes wake up with nightmares about her parents. Poor child, told that she was a freak by her own parents, the bastards, but thankfully she was clutching her Deku plushies and sleeping peacefully. It actually amused the mist villain to no end how attached to the young MSTR Toga is. Compress, Magna and Twice didn't need checking since they were adults, but he still passed for good measure. Anyone could have a bad night or need something, even if small, like a glass of water. And the bartender would be happy to oblige. Dabi was next, resting peacefully and not causing complete chaos for once, though Kurogiri supposed that even destruction incarnates needed rest every once in a while. He stopped outside Tamura's room and closed his eyes, sending a quick prayer to God above him that might have mercy on him. That Tamura took his advice and went to sleep. He silently opened the door and felt a fond expression slip across his face. Making his way in the room, he grabbed a blanket off the back of Tamura's gaming chair and gently tossed it over his charge. He then went to young MSDR's room but found it empty. Letting out an exasperated sigh, the mist villain walked through the impressively large hideout that was basically an apartment complex fixed from the inside and rebuilt into a fully prepared base. His young MSDR did an amazing job with only a year of strong work, and Kurogiri was truly proud. Anyways, Kurogiri walked through the hideout's large halls until he reached his destination, the young MSDR's office. The villain knocked twice and then spoke. Young MSTR? May I come in? The bartender asked politely. Of course. The young MSDR's voice called out from the inside, and Kurogiri took that as his cue to enter. As he entered, he saw multiple maps and papers scattered around. Plans and notebooks were on the table as the young MSTR was standing in front of the planning board, writing on it and marking places while muttering a storm. He was probably using multitasking, and Kurogiri hoped he wouldn't overuse his quirk. Kurogiri was both proud of his MSDR's strong work and worried for his health, since the boy was a bit off a workaholic and didn't care that much for his health. Young MSTR, I believe it's time for you to sleep. You can finish tracking down the hero killer later. Kurogiri said, and Deku shook his head in negative. I already got it anyways. Let me put my things in place and I'll go to my room. Deku said, and even though Kurogiri knew it was a lie, he decided to not call him out on it. Kurogiri nodded, and with a bow he exited the room but discreetly placed a cup of steaming coffee on the table before leaving. With everything finally done, he shut the door behind him and made his way to his own room for some much-needed rest. He could only hope the young MSTR take some rest. Tomorrow was fast approaching after all. Deku appeared in Dr. Garaki's lab in Jaka City using one of his quirks as he was going to do few stuff. He let himself observe for a moment. There were tanks upon tanks filled with Nomas. They were horrific. Amalgamations of quirks manifesting in such an awful way. Young MSTR. It's good to see you again. We have much to do today. The doctor drew his attention. He was standing in front of a tank taking quick notes. Deku walked through the maze of tanks until he was standing beside the doctor. Yes, we do. Where do we start? There are quite a few Nomus that I would like you to do the quirk transferring to, and there are few stocked copies of quirks you might want to take in case of an emergency. Dr. Garaki said with a smile as he walked. What do you mean? Is it too time-consuming to do artificially? And what do you mean multiple stocked copies? Deku asked in confusion. Right this way. Garaki led him through the maze to the outer edges closer to the office. And it's exactly what it sounds like. My lord and I made an interesting discovery while we were working together. We found that with some work we could make copies of pre-existing quirks. He found he was able to stack quirks on top of each other to create more powerful results. The Nomu that still retain some form of consciousness don't have the same level of control over quirks that Lord has, and eventually you will. Garaki motioned to a tank. That's pretty impressive. Is it very time-consuming? Deku asked as he approached the tank. Garaki is kind enough to make a list of the quirks each Nomu had and tape it to the rim of the tank. It really depends on the quirk. The more complicated the quirk, the longer the process takes. That being said, after we discovered the possibility of copying quirks, a lot of funding went into streamlining the process, so it's much quicker now than when we began. Applying them is the real goal. Once you've had practice, you will be a force to be reckoned with. You will be able to seamlessly switch between quirks and combine them to create effects that you may want. For example, combining several copies of strength quirks along with durability and flexibility quirks would boost your strength and adjust your body for maximum damage and range. Garaki explained. Deku furrowed his brows slightly. How did a quirk like this even exist? It's so OP it's almost unfair. For everyone else, that is. Deku nodded as they got to work. Then Deku gave Garaki a notebook. The old doctor grabbed it with anticipation, since last time he did that it was the second-generation Nomus formula. I had a bright idea for a new brand of super soldiers and worked on the perfect formula on my free time ever since we perfected the second-generation Nomus. These are the third-generation Nomus. They are supposed to be far better than the high-ends of the second-generation Nomus. Much better, but you are the one who taught me, so I came to ask for your opinions. So what do you think of them? Deku asked, but Garaki was still silent. The green-haired mastermind looked at the doctor, who was staring at the studies wide-eyed with amazement and almost salivating at the contents of the notebook. Young lord, these are. The doctor trailed off in astonishment. Truly magnificent. I can't wait to try this project. But how would we get a volunteer for this? Garaki wondered, and Deku smiled reassuringly. Let me worry about that, good doctor. You just do what you usually do and I will handle the rest. Deku smiled and Garaki nodded his head. Deku felt something was wrong and he looked at the doctor. Check the knots and tell me what you think later, I gotta go. Before Garaki could reply, Deku snapped his fingers and walked away. Stain, the hero killer, stood on top of a building, his body covered by the shadow of a water container. He was looking down at the streets, his eyes narrowing as he looked for his next target. If you want to surprise me, you'll have to do better than that, remarked Stain, looking to the side to see Kurogiri appearing in a swirling vortex of black-purplish mist. But I am merely a humble messenger and transporter, bowed Kurogiri. Please, if you could come with me? My leader is very interested in a serious discussion, and I will provide refreshments. He added. What interest could your group even offer me? Sneered Stain, not impressed by the mist villain. Well, we are the ones that control most of the crime in this city, shrugged Kurogiri. That has to count for something. How polite, scoffed Stain as he hopped off the ledge he had been standing. Very well. Take me there. Kurogiri nodded as he opened a portal for Stain to walk through, just to find himself in an old bar. He looked around, taking note of his surroundings, and exit while noticing Tamura and Kurogiri, who had just warped himself behind the counter, ready to serve drinks. I see, so you're the League of Villains, mused Stain, and you want to add me to your numbers. He deduced. Yeah. Come on, you've got so much more experience as a villain, pleaded Tamura with a rather monotone voice. Stain could pick up a hint of sarcasm in it too. And your goal? Asked Stain with a huff. He did not see anything worth noting yet, and the guy seemed like Brad. I want to kill All Might. I want to change this messed up society and make a better one. I don't like the current society much. Tamura explained the League's goal as far as he knew. Stain narrowed his eyes. I was foolish to be interested. You're the type of person I hate the most, the serial killer said with a scowl on his face. Both Kurogiri and Tamura looked at Stain in confusion while Stain continued on. You want me to go along with your childish tantrum? What meaning is there to killing without conviction? Kurogiri looked at the scene in worry, as they had brought Stain here on the intention of recruiting him while Deku took Ochako to see some apartments while disguised, of course. Or was that a clone? It was strong to know what the boss is scheming, but they wanted to lift some weight off his shoulders. But with how the situation was going, He couldn't help but try and make peace among the two. In an instance, however, Stain already threw 2 knives, wounding Kurogiri on the arm and drawing BLD. Then, with a burst of speed, Stain stabbed Tamura in the shoulder, toppling him over. Before Kurogiri could even attempt to do anything, he felt his body suddenly seize up, unable to move. Kurogiri looked around as best as he could to see what could have frozen him but was unable to tell just what it was. He did notice that the knife that Stain and nicked him with was right next to Stain. No matter what you want to accomplish, it is necessary to have conviction and longing. Those without and those who are weak will be weeded out. It's only natural. That's why it turns out like this, lectured Stain. Tamura growled in pain before asking Kurogiri to warp Stain out, only to find out that Kurogiri himself was unable to do anything. This society is overgrown with fake heroes where the word itself has lost its true meaning, and criminals who wave their power around idly should all be purged, stated Stain as his other blade began to approach Shigaraki's neck, only to halt as Stain felt the hairs on the back of his head stand up, but he was already slammed on the wall farther away from Tamura. As he registered what happened, he saw a boy with snow-white hair and demon-red eyes looking at him coldly, holding one of Stain's knives right by his throat. The kid was wearing a dark mask on his mouth and ears, with some of it covered his neck like plates and tubes on it. He was wearing a formal suit and a red tie. Stain, being the experienced warrior, he was recognized danger when he saw one, and this boy was probably the biggest danger the hero killer came across yet, as the look on his eyes alone was enough to make Stain raise his hands and surrender instantly from fear that he thought he would never feel. If you dare touch my followers ever again, I will brutally murder you in such horrible ways that you will be mistaking hell from paradise when I am done with you. Deku growled darkly as he put the blade closer to the hero killer's neck. Understood. Stain knew when to pick his battles, and this was not a fight he was going to take. Understood. The serial killer said with nod. The hero killer was harshly thrown across the room to the ground, causing him to grunt in pain, and as he got up he saw the boy walk to the other two and check them up. Boss? Tamura asked in surprise, not expecting the boss to show up so suddenly like this. Young Imsher, we are so sorry, but he dashed. Kurogiri started but was cut off by the boss's gentle voice even through the voice changer. It's alright Kurogiri, you were trying to help, I'm not mad. Just don't act on your own, please. If you get hurt I could never forgive myself. Deku said gently. And how are you feeling? Damn it, can't move a muscle. Tamura grunted. It's just paralysis, it will wear off in few minutes. Stain explained, and Deku sighed as he turned at him and removed his mask with an apologetic look that surprised Stain, as all the malice the boy radiated was gone. Sorry about that, I don't like it when someone lays a hand on my followers. Deku said as he helped Stain up. The serial killer looked the suit-wearing boy up and down before speaking. You are the real boss here. Stain stated matter-of-factly, and Deku nodded his head. Looks like if Stain kept from the two the boy will be civil, good to know. Why did someone so young become a villain? I was curious to your origins, future king. Stain said after a bit of time. I'd prefer to talk about the future. Namely, are you interested in joining the League of Villains? Deku asked, curious. Normally I'd test your mettle now. Stain replies calmly. People on the brink of death show their true faces. But I already know yours. Stain said with a frown. He could still see that look in the boy's eyes. That steel-like determination was something that shook the serial killer to his very core. What are your goals? The hero killer asked, intrigued. Controlled demolition of Japan. Deku stated in a loud, proud and straight voice. All Might, he has maybe a few years left. Stain? Stain's eyes widened in disbelief. How does that boy know if that was true? If it was, then Japan truly is screwed. His very quirk is burning out. When he ends, everything breaks. We no longer have time to repair this country. All we can do is ensure that those who could take advantage of the chaos won't be there when it happens. Deku explained. Hero Commission. Stain replies with disdain. Yes, but not only that. The mastermind says. Meta Liberation Army, Quirkless Liberation Front, Creature Rejection Clan, Inhuman Supremacy Party. I seek to weaken them so much that when the symbol of peace falls, the remaining heroes true to their word will have a fighting chance. Perhaps even the UA if the commission falls and Netsu decides to actually drive humanity to extinction. He was more than sure the rat considers it, but will he? That's not a goal, that's a plan, boy. Stain said before he could stop himself. The future king just smirked. I know, I'm just drama queen, my goal is simple in nature. So? Stain is interested. Probably. The man is unreadable. So I'm going to dismantle the villain groups I don't like. Deku replies. While leaving the villain groups I like, under the better version of my sensei's empire who happens to be the legendary Quirk Thief. My version. That took Stain off guard. But before I can take up the mantle of the symbol of evil, I need to clean up the rabid remnants of my sensei's times. I can't control the world of villains from the shadows when it's tearing itself apart, and I can't control the society from the shadows when the society is on fire. If I heard such words from any other 16-year-old kid, I'd laugh at them. Heck, if I heard from an adult, I would have still laughed. Stain replies after a few seconds of silence. But you? The look in your eyes, the power bubbling under your skin, it's that if a true leader. If you agree to join me in some missions, I will with pride join you in your path. The serial killer said, and Deku raised an eyebrow at that. Why do you want me to join you? Deku asked in curiosity. Obviously intrigued. There's a light in your eyes, something that piqued my interest. I want to see what you got in your mind and heart, boy. And in return I will show you how I see this world. Stain answered. Deku hummed for a bit, then sighed. Alright, you got yourself a deal, hero killer, but if I tell you just maim, or do not kill, or this one is to be harmed, you will listen to me or else. The threat was crystal clear, and Stain nodded his head in acceptance since the boy seemed to be as good of a judge as himself. It was then that Tamura and Kurogiri got up from the ground, obviously out of the paralysis effect. What the hell was that about? Tamura glared daggers at Stain, who looked at him with an indifferent expression. You seem too childish for a leader. I thought you were the one pulling strings here and that you would just be another psychotic brat in this cluster F of mad organizations. You could have told me you are not the leader, that would have made things much easier for both of us. I don't care for the ideals of followers but the leader. Stain explained, and Tamura huffed as he looked at Deku. I don't like him, boss. Do we really need the likes of him in the league? He might attack someone just like that. Tamura asked in annoyance, and Deku shook his head as he put back his face mask. Do not worry, Tamura-kun, I am going to judge his ideals just like he is, if his determination proves to be flawed or that he has any ill intentions to the League of Villains. Deku narrowed his eyes at the hero killer, and the air itself grew dense. The feeling of suffocation washing over Stain as he took a step back, but that was all he could do since his body refused to obey him further than that. To that boy, his aura, Stain thought, and Deku smirked in triumph as he used one of his favorite quirks at Stain. Deku's quirk No Degree 1, Suffocating Aura. The quirk allows her user to turn his animosity and negative feelings into a wave of powerful presence that intimidates the opponents. It can be specified on which opponents it's used the most. The stronger the negative feelings in the person's heart, the stronger the quirk gets. Deku loved this quirk. His usual presence was strong, but this quirk made him ridiculously fearsome. No wonder it was one sensei's favorites. The look on your opponents' faces was addictive, to be honest. Loyal to your people, admirable. Stain said with a nod. Deku turned to Tamura. Tell Toga-san that there's a bottle of my BLD in the fridge's drawer. This might take few days. Deku said gently, and Tamura groaned dramatically. Why am I the one delivering the news to that spoiled gremlin? He moaned in despair, and everyone else in the bar looked at him like he was crazy. A pot calling kettle black. Kurogiri mumbled quietly. After that they split off, and that was the start for long few days. In the news tonight we have the number 2 hero Endeavor heroically catching members of the Creature Rejection clan in a church in Okinawa. The hero arrested in the raid with several of his sidekicks and other pros around 52 cultists and recovered the corpses of 12 civilians with heteromorphic mutant quirks and saved around 4. Hey, what have I told you about listening to the radio at missions? Stain asked, irritated as he let the unconscious body of his newest victim, who much to his annoyance Deku decided that maiming to end his career was enough punishment. Deku, who was listening to the radio through his earpiece of the mask, gave Stain an eye smile since his mouth was covered. The boy was wearing his suit with his white hair for these missions to gain reputation. Oh sorry Stain, I am obsessed with collecting information and see how it would affect the League's long-term goals and plans. It's a bit off a habit. Deku apologized sheepishly. Stain looked at the unconscious body of Shining Star, a pro-hero that was more busy with giving autographs and had a very quirkiest attitude, always hurting mutant villains more than others. He didn't go as far as to kill them, so Deku decided to just end his career by cutting his hands off so he couldn't use his quirk, light manipulation, that allowed him to manipulate light into blasts and even solid objects. Deku took a glance at the unconscious hero, then removed his glove as he walked closer to the man, and Stain stood to the side as Deku placed his hands on the man's face and started taking his quirk. It would truly and utterly useful for him or someone else. After a moment Deku was done and the two took off into the rooftops. Deku looked at Stain, who was crouching on a ledge, and frowned. He still doesn't understand what Stain was interested by with him. Hero killer Stain, his atrocious acts and the cases conducted by him has been vastly attracting the attention of society and heroes recently. His atrocious acts, as if they are the punishment for this messed up society, are likely from his sheer motivation at the level of insanity. His words were, "The light in you eyes is different from these guys. The eyes are filled with hatred but shine with an unbreakable determination. I want to know what is behind those dark orbs of yours." Deku, even it has been days, hasn't understood what the man meant. Deku looked at the man from behind with his hands in his pockets. He came to realize after a while with the man that he is the embodiment of the ego of dissolute punishment. The result of his obsession was that he was the one closest to my determination. I wonder what kind of determination this man, who went insane for his ideology, expects from me. As they were in the rooftop, they heard a yell for help. Deku looked down and his eyes widened. That man is going to kill that kid. Someone call the heroes. A woman yelled as she ran for dear life. Muscular started to cackle. Yes. I was in my hideout and now this dumb brat from that hero couple came to me himself. Muscular declared. "Tch, pathetic, that be heroes or villains, there are a lot of those who use their quirks for idiotic purposes." Stain turned. "Let's go?" The hero killer found that Deku wasn't behind him. "What's wrong, kid? You were the one who came to me in my hideout, so take responsibility and entertain me more." Muscular declared as marched closer to the boy. He was short with black short, a white shirt and red hat with golden horns on top of it. He looked terribly scared too. "Shut up. Mother, father and you. You all like to do things as you wish, that's why bullshit happens everywhere." The boy yelled in hatred. Muscular just gave a homicidal grin. "Ah, what's with kids these days? You brats like to blame everything. I just do what I want. Take this as souvenir to you next life, in this the one's at fault." The muscle villain charged with his arm cocked back ready to deliver the final strike, and the boy closed his eyes. "Those who failed their intentions like your parents." As he was about to hit, he was blocked in place by a hand that was much smaller than his. Muscular looked at the new arrival in shock. "What the hell? Deku, is that you?" Muscular yelled in shock. "Great. Now we can have our fight dash." Deku just held his hand to a nearby car. Said car started floating in the air and shot at Muscular. The muscle-headed villain was thrown straight at a shop and was slammed inside. Deku let out a sigh as he adjusted his hood. "Oh well, my old habits never changes," Deku thought to himself as he turned to the kid who stared at him wide-eyed in shock and amazement. Deku's quirk No Degree 2, moving objects. Can affect two objects regardless of the weight of said objects. Can only affect things visible to the user. Stain watched this unfold with a grin. Yes, he has a sufficient right. I knew I did well by following him. Stain jumped down as Muscular got put of the hole in the shop ready for round 2. "Take the kid, I will deal with this guy," Stain said and unsheathed his katana, taking a battle stance ready to take the meathead on. "Roger that." Deku nodded his head, picking the kid and jumping to a nearby rooftop. The two villains began their fight as Muscular charged, trying to nail him down with punches, but Stain was too fast. "Diamond, this guy is swift as a cockroach, and judging by the blades he is good at techniques," Muscular thought as Stain quickly dodged his attacks. This guy isn't very fast, but his muscles are too dense to cut though. I will just stall for that monster of a leader until he is back," Stain thought. As the two were fighting, the boy was watching the scene in bewilderment and anger. Everyone is out of their freaking mind. What's so important about heroes and villains anyway? The boy growled, looking from the railing on the rooftop. "They're all selfish people who do what they want. Go to hell all of you," the boy screamed. Deku glanced at the side to see the boy crying. It broke his heart to say the least. The underworld future king put his hand on top of Koda's head. "So his name is Koda." The boy looked surprised before getting mad and slapping the hand away. "Don't touch me. You saved me to play hero, didn't you?" Deku looked at the boy sadly. "Oh, poor you, my boy. Water hose, right? They died heroes, that's what they said, isn't it?" Deku said gently. Koda looked surprised. "Huh. A mind-reading quirk?" the boy exclaimed. "Something of the kind, let me see you pain," Deku said kindly as he knelt by the crying boy. Deku's quirk No Degree 3, Reading Touch. Allows the user to read the mind of anyone they touch, or read an object's short-term memory. Can also change memories of others, but that takes time. "Liar. How can you understand me?" Koda screamed in outrage. "But I do, your bitterness and confusion. You don't know what's right and wrong anymore. Look down there, we are in a world that praises the age of heroes who are nothing but glory-hounding fools. The world is spinning and no one cares about the aftermath or what harm the heroes leave behind," Deku said as he put his hand on the boy's shoulder supportively. "Everyone must be telling you that don't cry, or your parents died heroes, sort of thing," Deku said knowingly. Deku continued. Isn't that ridiculous? You only have to suffer the consequences of others' deeds? The world wants us to smile when are actually crying. They tell to smile and stay strong while you are bearing your suffering alone. Deku said sadly. Kota started crying harder as he clutched his chest tightly. I just don't know, my chest hurts so bad, like it gonna kill me. I don't know what to do next. Please tell me what I should do. Kota whimpered and Deku embraced him gently. Poor you don't have to worry about a thing. Because I am here. Let's change this world that takes our pain for granted. Deku pulled away facing the boy as he removed his mask, revealing a bright smile that illuminated the darkness of the night. For the brighter smile of our future. You mean? Kota said in awe. Crush. The two looked down to see that Muscular punched Stain into a wall. Ah, not so tough now, are you? Now where are you, Rabbit? We have a match to do. Muscular yelled. Isn't that bad? Your friend will get killed. Kota looked at Deku, panicked. Deku just put back his mask on and sighed. Kota-kun, observe me. Let me show you the power that will change this world. The power that shall open the path to that future. Deku said as he held his wrist. FO. Absorb for occupy. Sense stimulated, reaction increased to 1% of full power stockpiled. Dark sparks danced in Deku's palm as he started levitating in the air. The boy slowly descended into the waiting Muscular. Deku gave an unimpressed look. I think I promised you a fight, go to a Masuji. So let's get this over with, the winner lives, the loser meets the devil in the pits of hell. Deku coldly as his eyes glinted. Yes. You have no idea how long I waited for this green rabbit. Show your BLD. The insane villain screamed as he charged at the green-haired mastermind, who simply sidestepped the punch and ran his sparking fingers through the villain's skin. Muscular screamed as black lightning that had green tints to it exploded through his body and he fell to the ground, his large fibers of muscle tissue tearing apart quickly. Electrotherapy, ever heard of it? Deku asked casually while the madman screamed in true agony. You can relieve pains by sending a mild electric current to your skin. What I did was sending one into your muscles. The mastermind continued. It stimulates your tissues greatly that they are torn apart. Inflammations and damages of a bodybuilder's muscles are way more painful than others. The future king informed casually while the man flailed around and yelled out for mercy. Your quirk muscle tissue to increase power? Then what if those tissues are slowly stimulated and torn up? Deku inquired as the villain wailed in agony and he turned to walk away. Deku just sighed as Muscular was down for the count. Pathetic, he can't even bear 1% of my power. Pathetic. Deku said as he helped Stain up to his feet. Poor you, all trashed up like this, let's go home. We enough work for few days. Deku said gently and Stain looked at him with a wide anticipating grin. You. I finally found you. You are the line between good and evil. The gray between the two. You are the one who can truly judge and discern good from evil unprejudiced. You are the one who will prove the world the true nature of these fake heroes. Stain declared. Gray? You mean there is good in my dark heart? What lame joke is this? Deku asked in annoyance. Don't underestimate yourself, boy. You are the one I was searching for. The man that would clean this world. The child of prophecy. Stain declared. Deku sighed as the two jumped into rooftop where Kota was. That was the last time Kota Izumi was seen. Few days later Deku was with the doctor in the lab working on their newest project together. So is the subject stable? Deku asked as he observed the fight or the slaughter inside. Muscular could be seen and heard screaming for mercy as he was being tossed and smashed around like a ragdoll. Yes, young lord, the subject is perfectly stable. In fact, the experiment was more than a success. It was a breakthrough. Garaki said, excited. The screaming continued and Garaki sighed. You should have done something about his vocal cords. Young lord. Please. Mercy. No more. It hurts. Muscular shouted from the testing room as he started banging on the glass window desperately. Get me out. I don't want to die. The muscle villain pleaded. Lord Karma. I'll follow everything you say. Serve you with passion. Just save me. Deku looked at him bored. Come on, I gave you the chance to survive and even break free. Keep fighting, my dear child needs it. Deku gave an unhinged grin. This my creation, the third generation Nomo. He declared. Behind Muscular came a figure slightly taller that resembled an armored knight with a helmet that had sharp red eyes and razor-sharp teeth. The helmet resembled a shark and the knight's body was one that would give All Might a pause. The knight grabbed the back of Muscular's head and smashed him to the ground as he started brutalizing him. After a bit the knight stopped and walked to the exit. Good job. I'm so proud of you, my child. You did well. Deku praised as the knight's form started shrinking down. Koda-kun. The form finally went back to that of Cat, who was beaming with joy. Thank you so much, father. Koda said as he hugged his adoptive father's leg, and Deku smiled. Good thing I took the original copy of muscle augmentation before the test and gave him a copy. Deku mused as he looked at the smashed corpse of the psychotic murderer. Let's go home, father. I want to show Uncle Tamura my new quirk. Koda beamed and Deku nodded, then looked at the doctor, telling him to clean up the mess. The two then disappeared with Deku's warping quirk, and Dr. Garaki was left remembering something All for One told him. Deku was a born leader. He could attract people with his sheer charisma and make them follow him. That was truly the proof. Thank you for joining us on this incredible journey through What If Deku Became the Villain Emperor. I hope you found it as intriguing and thought-provoking as we did. A big shout out to DekuVerse for crafting such a compelling story. Don't forget to check out their profile on Archive of Our Own for more amazing works. The link is in the description below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe to What If Deku 2.0 for more fascinating explorations into the world of fanfiction and fantasy. Your support helps us create more content like this, and we're always excited to hear your thoughts and suggestions in the comments section. See you guys in the next video.